Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the PC sim racing platform known only as iRacing, one of the premier platforms on the PC. Tonight marks round number 9 of the 12-round calendar, and we are here at the Belgian circuit of Circuit Zolder for what is expected to be a very high intensity and high risk round, and we'll come on more to that in a second, but the short reason why is because we are at a circuit which takes no prisoners with regards to braking zones and chicanes most importantly. But before we talk more about the circuit, what we are going to first tell you is that tonight's schedule is as follows, as per the typical schedule. It is going to be in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or UTC. In approximately 14.5 minutes time we'll be getting underway with qualifying, a 15-minute session at 8 o'clock tonight to determine our grid order for the purposes of race number 1, the sprint race, which will immediately follow qualifying. It will be a 15-minute race start to finish. The only strategy there is to get to the front of your respective field and then hold on to lead until the finish line, until the checkered flag. After that, we'll be conducting our post-race interviews with our race winners before taking a brief breather and then returning at approximately 5 to 9 this evening in the build-up to the second race of tonight, and that is the 60-minute feature race, where it's not just about raw pace, it's also about the strategy and about knowing when to come into the pits to take that all-important pit stop, and we'll come on to the specifics around that in a short while. In the commentary box tonight, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, and we'll be taking a look at lobby number 1 tonight. That is the lobby sponsored by Apex Racing Academy, also known as the ARA lobby, as our drivers take to this circuit in the 3 respective classes of Pro, Pro-Am and Am for some very intense racing action. Now, this broadcast being brought to you on 3 media platforms, of course. That is firstly the NXTGEN Racing YouTube channels. That's NXTGEN Racing on youtube.co.uk. Alternatively, you could go to Facebook, particularly Facebook groups, and you'll find under facebook.com/groups NXTGEN Racing. Or last but not least, if you are Twitch inclined, you can always tune in via my personal Twitch channel. That is TX141 on Twitch. But with this being the Apex Racing Academy lobby, it's only fair that we introduce our primary sponsor for this lobby. And without further ado, let's introduce Apex Racing Academy. So who are Apex Racing Academy, I hear you ask? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They are dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. And moreover, in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested? Then why not sign up now at apexracingac.com. That website again, apexracingac.com. And of course, we are very grateful to have Apex Racing Academy on board, contributing very heavily to our prize pool come the end of this championship. And speaking of championship, let's take you through the Drivers' Championship and indeed all the standings in the run-up to tonight. So after the opening 8 rounds, with 4 rounds to go including tonight, we can see, starting with the Pro Drivers' Championship, it is Matt Caruana who continues to lead on 266 points, with these championship standings now taking into account the drop scores which are featured come at the end of the season. Matt Caruana leads on 266 points after a great day at Spa-Francorchamps, but he did pick up a post-race penalty which saw him demoted to finishing position, and as a result didn't get as many points as perhaps he thought when he crossed the finish line. And with 266 points to his name, he is ahead of Luke McKeown still by a margin now of 19 points. However, we know Luke McKeown, the late arrival in the series, but nonetheless the very fast charger, and it is the case McKeown now up into P2 and continuing to make a name for himself. And really, our top 2 have been inseparable in terms of pace, albeit McKeown seems to just have a slight advantage over Caruana. Race in, race out, and will it be an opportunity tonight for Caruana to fight back? P3 is Billy Fletcher on 238 points, currently 16 ahead of Hackle Gustad, and then Tom Edwards completes our top 5 there on 197. Outside the top 5, but none less important, and battling ready to get into the top 5, Mark Fletcher leads the way there on 182 points, 10 points ahead of Oystein Hereford. Reece Cow, unable to take part last time out of Spa, dropping key points, now on 169 points, with Jason Landry only 2 away, and it is the case the Canadian proving that consistency pays and inching ever closer towards the top 5. Elliot Harper completes our top 10, and then outside the top 10 we can see Robert Dasunik leading the charge after the top 10 on 130 points, only 2 points ahead of both Kenny Hermans and also Tom Dadswell, Dadswell being unable to finish the sprint race at Spa. Tom Mount and James Holman complete our top 15, and it's Deegan Fairclough, Anders Wiese Ankerson, Callum Brandt, Daniel Blomqvist and Tony Verschaff that complete our Pro Championship at this point in time. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am Championship, the picture's a little bit different. We can see Callum Reid Garton, after 8 rounds, is absolutely dominating at this point in time with an unassailable advantage, you could argue, but it's not in the bag yet, but that's what the forecast would say. 351 points to his name versus the 209 of Ben Hicks. And really now the story of the Pro-Am Championship, unless Reid Garton hits a huge form of inconsistency in poor performances, is who is going to be the one to finish P2. Is it going to be Ben Hicks? Is it going to be Jean-Louis Desschans, Matthew Hodges, Edward Lack, Daniel Holmer, Jakob Boshoff, Jeremy Debova, Dirt Bounce or Phil McDougall? And you can see there P2 through to P10 only separated by a margin of 53 points, and that can sway very quickly. But even outside the top 10, only a further 5 points back are both Anthony Beck and Lucas Romano, with Beck ahead according to result countback. Hackett Shot on 150 points, well within the chance of getting into the top 10, and Didi Vlaming and Peter Lemkins as well completing that top 15. James Slates in P16 ahead of Paul King, Stephen Norman, Andrew Lovesey and Colin Martin, with Colin Martin unfortunately not coming back anytime soon, and as a result staying there in P20 in the Pro-Am Championship. In the AM Championship, meanwhile, the battle for the championship lead rages on between our top 4. It is Matt Emmons who currently leads after a good night at Spa, but the return favourites that Stefan Gamborg-Rasmussen also had a fantastic night at the Belgian circuit, only 4 points away from Emmons. But do not count out Matthew Addy and Jochen Seeger, both drivers very fast, really coming into their prime now as we're heading towards the end of the season, although we've got a few rounds to go, and it is the case that both Addy and Seeger are well within reach of taking that championship lead. Alexander Batak a bit further back, leading the charge and holding on to the top 5 right now, 2 points ahead of George Bland, who had a revival of form at Spa, something rare we've seen from George Bland over the course of this season. That form now really starting to come into effect. Will we be able to get any more points tonight? We'll have to wait and see. Stephen Tim Koopmans unfortunately not able to take part at Spa and missing some key points. Now 7 points ahead of Arjun Kregel, who is also on 192 points with Morten S. Hustus, but ahead on result countback. And Kurt Van Hoenacker completes our top 10 in the AM Championship. Outside the top 10, Jack Wyborn continuing to put in those performances that we love to see and continue to build that ground, albeit I believe we do have a slight glitch with our results there, ladies and gentlemen, so we're not quite seeing the actual Apex Racing Academy standings, so give us a brief moment. We do need to fix that. We seem to have encountered a small glitch. Apologies about that, ladies and gentlemen, those are now fixed, but what we can see is an Navarro Devova in P11 at this point in time and trying to close up to the top 10 as rapidly as possible. With Gus Franken in P12, Ronald Vanutrex P13, Arjan Bakker P14, Peter Kupius P15, Jürgen Nockett P16 and Peter Dombrek completing your AM Championship standings. Now, with that in mind, we do have, of course, the team championships back as well. We're very happy to say we've got the team standings back, and you can see that after 8 rounds, it is right now Luxim24 of MMV Esports across both lobbies who are leading by only a single point ahead of Racing Team Astra. That is how close it is between these two teams as they now move into the final 4 rounds, and both teams inseparable and putting in stellar performances, with Luxim24 of MMV Esports primarily being in the Apex Racing Academy lobby and Racing Team Astra primarily being in the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing lobby. Those two teams are really going at it in order to try and win the Constructors' Championship. Switchback Motorsport in a very well placed P3, only 4 points ahead at Next Gen Racing Blue, with Altitude Esports there completing the top 5. It's then RD Simsport who are in P6 with only 2 points between them, and Apex with MMV Esports in P7, CXR Project Black, Team Tetrarouge and Ignia Motorsport completing the top 10. And just outside the top 10, TGC Racing are continuing their form and continuing that form of results, with Alistair Kirk being their forerunner in recent major results. But let's not count out the rest of the team, all putting in stellar performances to get themselves to 427 points, 20 ahead of Next Gen Racing Orange. Delta Motorsport 4 behind Next Gen Racing Orange and Ignium Spark just outside of the 400 point margin. McChange BE2 in P15 just ahead of their peers McChange BE1. Bright Esports, Igni and Blaze, RD Sim Sport 2 and SVPR completing our top 20. And in our final positions in the Constructors' Championship, Team Racing Netherlands Blue ahead of Team Racing Netherlands Red, Team Racing Netherlands Orange at the bottom of the three Team Racing Netherlands driving teams, and then it is DDR ahead of Igni Motorsport Phoenix. Will these teams be back tonight to get some all-important points? Well, outside of our Constructors' Championship then, let's come on to the circuit. We are at Circuit Zolder Grand Prix layout today. We are at the Zolder region of Belgium for the circuit, which really is everybody's second favourite circuit in Belgium after Spa-Francorchamps. This circuit not being the one that you immediately say when somebody says name me a circuit in Belgium, but by no means is it not an important circuit. Known as the home of DTM, this circuit, as you can see from the map provided to us by simracingwiki.com, is a circuit which contains some absolutely brutal braking zones, with three major chicanes located at turns 5, 7 and also into turn number 11. It is going to be a change on the brakes and some very high curbs for our drivers to deal with, and we're going to see that now in our reference lap as brought to you by Matt Caruana. So as he makes his way into turn number 1 then, a very long trail braking corner in third gear, attacking that apex and immediately getting back on the throttle, and now moving over to the left hand side for turn number 2. Another trail braking here, a very extended braking zone, and as soon as he hits that apex curve, he gets them back on the throttle immediately and carries through into turn number 3, flat out through 3, before getting ready for the brief trail brake into turn 4. Making his way in and staying in fourth gear here, some drivers will drop to third and powering on through, running a little bit wide there out onto the gravel, but not using too much of it to make it an invalid lap. And now charging up towards the kind of chicane, the first of the chicanes, the small chicane, and breaking the 100 metre board and coming all the way down to second gear and attacking viscerally those curves before making his way over the crest and now down into turn number 6, flat out here through left hand and staying as far left as possible because he's immediately got to brake as soon as the kink ends to go into the turn 7 chicane. Making his way on through now and through at the right hand here and coming all the way through. This is all part of turn number 7, and as he makes his way out to the final part of the right hand sequence, going through the left hand here of turn number 8 before the braking zone down into turn number 9. A right angled hairpin style corner here and coming down to second gear, full steering lock, now merging home through 10, the little left right kink here, completely flat out, before making his way up towards the final chicane here, the Jackie Ick chicane, as he makes his way into the braking zone, braking just after the 100 metre board, coming down to second gear, and watch as he rides over the exit apex here, the apex curve there, and immediately uses the full width of the circuit to complete the lap. A beautiful lap from Matt Caruana, and that's why he's our championship leader in the pro class. The rules for tonight. Our drivers shall be running the iRacing high downforce setup for tonight's races, what this being a fixed setup series. In the sprint race, each driver will have one fast repair available, and the driver shall be subject to a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. Meanwhile, in the feature race, the grid will be set by reverse Drivers' Championship order based on the championship standings after the previous round. So what that means is whoever was leading in their respective class going into tonight, they will be at the back of their pack, because you can see in the second rule there in the feature race, the grid will be separated into driver classes, with the classes starting approximately 1 second apart. The pros will start ahead of the pro-ams ahead of the ams. Our driver's starting fuel load shall be restricted to 70% for the start of the race in the feature, and that is to trigger the mandatory pit stop, where our drivers will need to take on fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. And each driver shall have one fast repair available, and they shall be subject to a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. That's enough about the rules and all the championship standings. I know what you're all here for, ladies and gentlemen, so am I. It is that race in action. And as we look to our timing boards here, and indeed the live cameras, as all of our drivers are getting themselves set, we can see right now Jason Landry making his way around and out of turn number 2 and up into 3 at this point in time, the Delta Motorsport driver, and everybody just getting themselves up to speed with the limited time they have available. This being the final practice session of the sessions available. As we can see Landry there backing off after a little bit of snap oversteer, going through turn number 4. Quite tricky corner turn 4, given the way the road surface tapers in to the apex and is actually quite tight on exit, and it's one of those situations whereby you're not going into a corner which widens out beyond the apex. In fact, it stays very tight all the way through. But in terms of our fastest times right now, we can see that it is Oistein Herford who's P2 in the pro class and P2 overall, but it is Billy Fletcher who is in the pits, and well, he has set an absolutely brilliant lap, although it looks as though he's parked inside there, the Volante racing machine of what is Matt Caruana. That's just a little bit of a graphical glitch. And meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, it is Jean-Louis Desschans who is currently the fastest man out of anyone in the Pro-Am class, being in P4 ahead of Callum Reid Garton. Now, it should be pointed out that we are expecting a number of individuals not to be in attendance tonight due due to a clash with an upcoming event on iRacing, and in fact that's why we cannot see Luke McKeown. We just found out that Luke McKeown will not be taking part tonight, and that is because of, well, also personal circumstances may be intervening, but we do have the iRacing Daytona 24-hour this coming weekend, and I am aware that a number of participants in this series are going to be using tonight as a drop score effectively in order to get more practice time in for the Daytona 24 hours. Remembering that our drivers are multidisciplinary drivers, they drive multiple series on iRacing, indeed other sim racing platforms, which is of course great to see. Of course we missed them here today, but it does mean that we will be seeing a field which has a few less names in it, alternatively names that we've frequently seen perhaps up the front, but of course it's a great opportunity for some of the other names here to shine. And well, in the AM class right now, young Navarro Debova here, the McChange BE2 driver, and the younger member of the Debova family, absolutely attacking the client chicane there and deciding to do a bit of rallycross on exit, carrying way too much momentum for his own good, and the Audi driver there having to back the car off and get it out of the way as everybody comes over the bridge there and builds up a lot of speed in the run down towards where's the second chicane. And Navarro Debova, the fastest man of anybody in the AM class here tonight so far, I've seen in this final practice session, but there's a lot of questions to be answered because this is not indicative of how qualifying is going to go, as we see Gus Franken sharing a bit of road space here with one of the Ignium Motorsport machines. I believe that is Oystein Heifers. They go side by side all the way down towards Jackie X chicane, and as they make their way down in towards turn number 11 here, fantastic to see the RP Motorsport seniors driver going side by side with Oystein Heifers, who makes his way around the outside to inside in the end, and Gus Franken giving him the space does the Dutchman. But the fastest man of anyone is Billy Fletcher here as he makes his way around, and we transition over to the qualifying session. 15 minutes. Who is going to be on pole come at the end of it? Let's find out. Now, what is it about this circuit and what do you have to do to get the best possible lap in qualifying, I hear you ask? Well, this is not a slipstream circuit. We are not going to be seeing our drivers queue up for slipstream behind one another. I can assure you that straight away. And the reason for that, simply put, is because this circuit, there's not really any major straights here or extended straights where you're going to benefit from having that toe versus the fact that you're going to be tucked in behind another car for a sizable period of time and feel the pinch essentially of that dirty air. In the opening half of the lap in particular, so turns 1 to 4, as we see Jean-Louis Desschans completing turn number 4, it is the case that through those corners you want to have clear air in front of you because a bit of dirty air will cause the front of the car not to have the aerodynamic effects that it wants to have, and it can make the car harder to turn through the corners. And that is something which our drivers will be aware of. And again, coming into the second half of the lap, particularly into what is turns 6 through to turn number 10, well, sorry, turn number 9 I should really say, again, and through turn number 7 here in particular, the long extension from what is the chicane where turn 7 starts all the way through the double right, which completes the corner. It's one of those situations whereby as you come through that sequence of course, you want that clearance, you want the front end to rotate in nicely. So I'd expect whilst everybody's going to be charging around right now to get themselves all the way to the start finish line to get onto a flying lap as soon as possible, we're not going to be seeing this huge queue of drivers where we might be seeing in a week's time at Monza. We're not going to be sitting here in terms of everybody trying to queue up and get the toe because it's not going to be as valuable as perhaps it would be at other circuits. But speaking of queuing up, I think we've all queued up for a reference lap here, an on-board qualifying lap, and we're going to ride on Jean-Louis Desschans as he takes us around here. Remembering Jean-Louis Desschans, one of our major contenders for P2 in the Pro Championship, just behind Ben Hicks right now in P3. As he clears turn 1 and makes his way into turn 2, and we are expecting the Porsche here to be relatively strong because its main weakness, which is straight line speed, is not going to be hit as hard because this circuit does not expose its top gear. But as he makes his way out of 3 and now up into 4, looking very smooth so far is Desschans, and you can see it in the action. He runs wide and loses the rear of the car slot. He brings it back together, but that is going to be an invalidated lap immediately for Desschans, and he will not have wanted that. That is not the way he will have wanted to have started off his evening, with an invalidated lap. As meanwhile, just behind him, Hackenschott here. Well, in fact, Hackenschott not just behind him on our timing screens, but not behind him in terms of qualifying laps. We can see right now the Swede making his way around as we say hello to a Swede in the Twitch chat, and that is to Swede Lerb. We hope you're doing well, Lerb, and well, let us know what you're expecting for tonight here at the Zolder circuit as all our drivers continue to make their way around, and we are just waiting for those opening qualifying laps to come on in. As we continue to look around, we can see Matthew Addy here running a little bit wide there through turn number 2 and into 3, and deciding to back out, I think, and give some other drivers a little bit of breathing room, and I think just keeping it nice and clear. We've got some very distant cameras here at the Zolder circuit. It does look as though our cameramen have decided to pitch themselves quite far away from the cars, and I think that is the way, to be fair, the cameras are permitted to be laid out on the circuit, which is a little bit unfortunate. We like to be closer to the racing action, but we will try and get you some closer camera angles where we can. As George Band making his way on through right now, but nobody yet has set a qualifying lap. And in fact, the first lap is in, and it is Matthew Hodges, who was the driver just behind Jean-Louis Desschans, and the CXR Project Black driver. What a story to tell from Spa. And I think Matthew Hodges has got unfinished business here today. He will want to try and pick up the win that he missed out on in the sprint race at Spa due to the last lap incident between himself and Callum Reid Garton. And the two of them did shake hands and brush it off after the race, which was great to hear. But Matthew Hodges, having set that absolutely blistering pole lap in the Pro-Am class at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, can he do it again tonight? And he is in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. We're expecting it to be one of the stronger cars here due to its gearing and also its handling characteristics with its mid-engine rear-wheel drive layout. But we'll have to wait and see what Matthew Hodges is able to achieve. He's currently the fastest man in the Pro-Am class, but a lot of laps to come in. And meanwhile, in the Pro class, we can see it's the Volante racing driver here of what is Matt Caruana, who decides to take a bit of a wide run there out of turn number 4, and I think that's going to be an invalidated lap. He immediately parks up, but meanwhile Billy Fletcher making his way down towards the Kleiner chicane right now, and as he comes roaring on down the straight and into that heavy braking zone here, just watch him as he goes through, missing the apex curve and hits the curb there of the second part of the chicane way too hard and high. And that is what happens when you hit a curb at the wrong time and at the wrong angle. The car will just get launched, and particularly in a car like the Audi, it will be the case. The Audi not comfortable at taking curbs, particularly high curbs, and we saw just how Billy Fletcher lost out there. He's currently P2 in class as Callum Reid Garton has gone P2 overall, the Pro-Am driver. Matthew Hodges does improve to 127.8 on our timing screens on the left-hand side of your screen. It is looking as though these qualifying laps are going to be tight between our top drivers, as we see here. Kenny Herriman's in the rear of the camera shot there in what is the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, now charging down towards its chicane as he makes his way down towards turn number 11 here. And Kenny Herriman's currently P7 overall, what is P5 in class. There's a couple of Pro-Ams ahead of him. That's why he's got the distinction of not being in the same overall position as he is in the Pro class position. And as he comes across the line here, it's looking like it's a potential improvement. Is it going to be enough? And we can see, no, it's not quite enough to improve. It was a 127.92, his best at 127.91, but he's got time out there as Deegan Fairclough has then set a provisional pole here, and that is very fast and blistering indeed from the British driver as he makes his way through turn 1 and up into 2. Fairclough in the number 87 machine, setting what is a 127.488, and well, that is a very fast lap in the Audi R8 as he now makes his way into turn number 4. And indeed, looks though Fairclough enjoying and just reveling in that ability of the Audi R8 and indeed his own driving abilities as he now makes his way down towards the Kleiner chicane. But as he makes his way down, we see a little bit further back, we do have Callum Reid Garton coming up towards turn number 4 right now. And the BMW M4 driver, who really has been the man to beat in the Pro-Am class throughout the season, and he has been the man on form. Will he be able to make that provisional pole in the Pro-Am class concrete come the end of the session? We've still got a lot of time left. It is a short lap here as well, and that's something we didn't really talk about in the introduction, is the fact that we are looking at one of the fastest laps at this circuit in terms of the lap time. The lap just being under 1.5 minutes, and as a result, that means that we're going to be seeing plenty of qualifying laps here, and indeed a lot of drivers who will start off with bankers but very quickly build up the pace, particularly as more rubber is laid down the circuit and that track condition continues to improve. Well, at least we would hope it improves for our drivers, because we want to see the fastest possible laps. Meanwhile, in the AM class, I can tell you now that we've got a number of lap times up on the board, 24 lap times so far, and we are looking at approximately 34 drivers taking part tonight in the Apex Racing Academy lobby. It is the case that Jürgen Nocker has set the fastest lap of anybody in the AM class by quite a sizable margin, and I think it is the case that the Audi R8 driver here, whilst we haven't seen too much of him in terms of stellar performances in recent rounds, he's back on form tonight, and that's what we've been hearing down the paddock from a lot of drivers in the practice session that took place last night, the final major practice session before going into tonight, where our drivers had 3 hours to get themselves acclimatised with the circuit if they hadn't already over the weekend. It was the case we were hearing that there were quite a few drivers who have not had the best of results in previous rounds but are really reveling in this circuit, and Jürgen Nocker was the #1 name on the headline bill with regards to that revival of form as he now makes his way down towards turn number 9 here, the McChange PE driver, and we'll have to wait and see if he is able to improve as he comes on through the chicane, now through the left to right of what is turn at number 10, and as he makes his way down towards each chicane at turn at number 11, what will he achieve? Well, I think at this point in time we see he's not improved on the bottom of your screen there. In fact, he's lost out in 4 out of 5 sectors, and so this is not going to be an improving lap from Nocker. Perhaps he's setting himself up, and we're going to ride on board here with Jürgen Nocker as he takes us around for another lap and see if he improves this time. So coming into turn number 1 here, coming down to third, getting attacking that apex curve very stable there over the apex curve, keeping the car nice and pointed as he now comes into using the full width of the circuit. And as soon as he gets towards that apex, getting on the throttle immediately, using the width for 2, carrying through into turn number 3, and now coming up into turn number 4, into the very tricky corner that completes the first half of the lap. And as he comes on through, gets it very nicely hooked up there, uses the perfect amount of exit curve and continues to push on down towards turn number 5 into that braking zone for the Kleiner chicane. And whilst it may be a small chicane, it's by no means insignificant as he clatters the curbs there and just keeps it pointing in the right direction. Very liberal usage of the curb as he comes through 6 and out up into the braking zone for 7 into the second chicane here as he makes his way through. He has to cut as much curb here and then follow through into the double right that completes the official turn 7 as he comes on through. And as he does, it's looking very smooth right now for Jürgen Nocker as he makes his way up over the ridge and down in towards turn number 9. Heavy braking zone, a bit of traffic up in front. I believe that is Tom Edmonds just ahead of him right now in the RD Sim Sport machine. And I think that's Edmonds who's just moved out the way for him, who was on an out lap, so Nocker not affected at all. And as he now comes down into turn number 11 into each chicane, will he be able to improve this time? That is the big question. He's not improving compared to his previous best, but it's still a very smooth lap. I'll tell you one thing right now, I'm envious of the smoothness. I wish I could do this. But as he comes across that timeline this time, it is not a sizable improvement. And Jürgen Nocker, I think, deciding just to get a few laps in off the pace and then finally get himself back up to speed. As meanwhile in the pro class, I can tell you that it's Deegan Fairclough who is still leading in terms of this qualifying session at this point in time with an absolutely sensational lap. And whilst it doesn't look like much in terms of he's only 6.5 hundredths ahead of Billy Fletcher, who's got himself ahead of Matt Caruana, what I can tell you is that 6.5 hundredths is a very sizable amount of time. It's hard to find time here around Zolder unless you absolutely drive on limit. And when we talk about driving on limit, as in really attack those apex curves, of course some of the cars that our drivers are driving will be able to abuse those curves more than others. And in particular, it's the case that the front engine rear wheel drive cars may be able to abuse those curves a little bit more because they're not as sensitive in terms of the weight transfer from the rear to the front of the car, which the mid-engine rear wheel drive cars are affected more heavily by, such as the Audi R8, the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, and also the Lamborghini Huracan, and also the one McLaren MP4 12C that we do have running. And let's see how it's getting on. It is the Ignium Motorsport McLaren, of course, of Håkon Gustad as he makes his way through turn number 2 right now. And Håkon, of course, a little bit of the individual to buck the trend, if you will, by picking the car that nobody else wanted to use as he makes his way into turn number 4 and looking very smooth indeed right now as Håkon Gustad. And whilst the McLaren may not be the fastest car at this circuit, or at least we're not expecting it to be the fastest, what you can definitely say is he's putting it through its paces as he's currently P5 overall, P4 in class, and continuing to hunt down that lap time on Callum Reid Garton, but more importantly going after Matt Caruana. The delta between Gustad and Caruana right now is only 1/10 of a second as we update our timing screens, ladies and gentlemen, to show you what the classes look like when they are grouped together. Give us a brief moment and you'll be able to see them all grouped together, and well, it'll be very nice to do so indeed. As we can see there in the pro class right now, our top 5, Deegan Fairclough ahead by 6.5 hundredths ahead of Billy Fletcher, then Matt Caruana P3 a further 10th back, and then it's Håkon Gustad who is only 3 hundredths off of Matt Caruana. Kenny Hermans completes the top 5 of the pro class in the provisional qualifying standings, but we still have some time remaining. We've got 3.5 minutes plus the final laps. We've got plenty of time out there. Meanwhile, it's Callum Reid Garton in the pits right now, and I think he feels as though he's done a good enough job with Matthew Hodges in P2. 1.5 tenths down on Callum Reid Garton right now. Lucas Romano, and just before we continue down the prime, Håkon Gustad did improve. He's got himself ahead of Matt Caruana out to a 27.636, but meanwhile Callum Reid Garton X'd in the pits, we're hearing, so I think he feels the job's not done. They're just putting some fuel back in the car. Matthew Hodges now only 1.5 tenths off of Callum Reid Garton and continue to press on with Lucas Romano in P3. Then we've got DDD Belaming in P4, and where's DDD Belaming, you ask? Well, here he is trying to get some temperature in the tyres right now on the run down towards the Kleiner chicane here. This is an outlap effective for Blaming. You can see that on the timing board. And there is Ben Hicks, who is our P2 man currently. Well, I was going to say it's Ben Hicks who's P5, P2 in the championship. And no, it's Jeremy De Bova, the Belgian here, the McChallenge B machine, with its very distinct livery there. And you can definitely tell Jeremy De Bova loving the McDonald's livery as he makes his way all the way around through turns 2 and 3 and up towards 4. And he's currently P5 in the Pro-Am class and only 7 hundredths off of DDD Blaming and only 7 thousandths ahead of Ben Hicks right now. It's very close in the Pro-Ams outside of the top 2. But meanwhile in the AM class it is still Jürgen Nocker who is leading by a whole tenth of a second exactly over Kurt van Hohennacker, and a beef out of Van Hohennacker, the Belgian driver chasing after his fellow countryman. They're both running together on circuit right now, and I think it may be the case they're trying to work together and give one another the slipstream over the course of their laps. Perhaps they're deciding, you know what, it's time to work together a little bit more. And in doing so, we'll have to wait and see how that affects the lap as Kenny Heremans moves up to P3 in the Pro class. You'll see that on the timing screen. But right now, and I was going to say Kurt Van Hoenacker in P2, with it's Navarro de Boven, the McChange BE drivers here, really enjoying this circuit, really in the AM class in particular, loving the circuit to pieces. And it's Matthew Addy P4 and Jochen Sieg at P5. But I believe it's going to be a McChange B lockout on the front row of the AM class right now. And indeed the top three, if things stay as they are, as we now return to what is our traditional timing screens, if you will, and we will just take a look at what is now the overall picture. As we see there, Deegan Fairclough getting it very wrong on the chicane, the Kleiner chicane, and going sideways but out of the way of everybody as Øystein Herford, well, there's a surprise, but a welcome one to be sure. And I think the Norwegian right now, and Ignium Motorsport down in the garages, must be holding their fingers and toes crossed, because he is the pole position man right now to be overall and in the Pro class, and it's not by a huge margin, it's 200ths, and Deegan Fairclough, well, Deegan, to be fair, put in a monster lap, but he's had to jump to the pits. He's on an out lap. I'm not sure if Deegan's going to be able to get the lap in as he comes up towards turn number 4 very shortly. I don't think he's got time. I do not think Deegan Fairclough has it, or if he has, it's going to be on the bubble right now. Where is Billy Fletcher? Well, Billy Fletcher is making his way through turn 7 and down towards turn number 8, as we do see that Ferrari, I believe that was the Ferrari of Peter Kupius that was glitching in and out of existence. And as they make their way down right now, well, Kenny Heremans goes provisional pole. The track has evolved and everybody's getting in their best possible lap times right at the end of the session. Heremans has got room for one more lap if he so desires, but this is a qualifying session that's not going away. It's not over yet, and we could see more laps come on in. Well, will Øystein Herford be able to respond? Well, I think if he's going to, he's got to get done now, but I think he's backed off. That's looking quite a slow running Audi coming out of turn number 9. I don't think he's going to get to that finish line in time to go on to another lap, and I think he's backed this one off. Deegan Fairclough's on that out lap still. I don't think he's going to get done, and it is the case. Øystein Herford into the pit, but right now Billy Fletcher goes onto lap, and he immediately scuppers it by running wide at turn 1, and Billy Fletcher knows immediately it is over for him as Callum Reid Garton improves to a 27.584, putting him provisional P1 in class. Can Matthew Hodges respond? He is on the lap right now, Matthew Hodges, as he comes down through turn number 6, and let's stay with the 6 of Project Black Machine, as meanwhile in the AM class I can tell that Jürgen Nocker is just ahead of Navarro de Boven in terms of lap time by only what is 300ths of a second, as Hodges goes a little wide there coming out of the chicane and into the double right, and that could have cost him the time he needs. We'll wait to see. I think Hodges right now is battling up against, I think it's an uphill battle for the Pro-Am driver. He's going to try and prove us wrong as he comes out through turn number 10 and up towards 11. I think he's got to pull off the mother of all sectors here, because he is down in sectors 3 and 4. And as he comes through the final one, I don't think it's going to be enough as he clatters the opening apex to turn 11. And as he makes his way on up towards the start finish line, yep, he's backed off. He knows it's not going to be an improvement. So it is Callum Reid Garton who takes pole position in the Pro-Am class. It is Kenny Heremans who takes pole position in the Pro class. And meanwhile, in what is the AM class, what's the story, I hear you ask? Well, I think it's Jürgen Nocker who has pulled off a surprise here and has taken that pole position by a minor margin after Navarro de Boven, I should say. And well, young Navarro parked up on the circuit right now. He can't improve. Matthew Addy has completed his qualifying session, and that is it, ladies and gentlemen. It is Kenny Heremans who has pulled out the biggest shock of them all here and taken pole by what is 800ths of a second overall and in the Pro class. And well, it is great to hear that the Lamborghini Huracan driver has found his rhythm and got himself right up to the top of the timing board. As we just check in with what is the stewards right now, we're not hearing anything major with regards to stewarding over on those lines. And well, I just wanted to make sure it's not a case of a dream come true, but it has happened, ladies and gentlemen. Kenny Heremans has got himself pole position by looks of things, as right now the rest of our drivers have made their way into the pits and Hackenschott parked up on circuit. That ends the qualifying session effectively, but what a brilliant qualifying session. And indeed, Kenny Heremans and Øystein Herford locking out the front row. Well, that is something we haven't seen in some time. Without further ado then, let's take you through the grid lineup for the purposes of race number 1, the sprint race. It is Kenny Heremans who has taken pole position over Øystein Herford. Two drivers who have been up towards the front time and time again, but never on that front row, and they have locked it out between them. Deegan Fairclough P3, Billy Fletcher P4. We then got Callum Reid Garton in P5. By then what is And we can see Callum Reid Garton at P5, the pro and pole position driver, with Hakon stand alongside him in P6. Then Matt Caruana and Matthew Hodges on row number 4. Jason Landry and Tom Edmonds on row number 5. Lucas Romano and DDD Blaming on row number 6. Row number 7 consisting of Jeremy DeBova and alongside him Jurgen Nocker, our pole position man for the AM class in the end, getting pole by a minor margin of 27 thousandths over Navarro DeBova, who takes P15 and kicks off our 8th row. Ben Hicks alongside him, Dirk Bouts and Kurt Van Hernacker occupying row number 9. Robert Desuni and Matthew Addy on row number 10. Jean-Louis Desschans and Anthony Beck on row number 11. Gus Frank and Jakob Boschoff on row number 12. And then completing our final set of rows, it is going to be what is Daniel Holmer and Hakan Schott occupying row number 13 for Bright Esports. Jochen Sigger and Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen on row number 14. James Slates and Matt Emmons on row number 15. Matt Emmons having another difficult qualifying session, but we know he comes back very strong in the races. Ronald Van Utrecht and George Ban on row number 16. Arjen Kregel and Peter Kupiers completing our order on row number 17. 34 drivers in qualifying, 34 taken to the circuit for the purposes of the race, as we now wait to go racing here, and we try to find a camera angle that's not obscured by the grandstand. Indeed, it will be the case. The gridding process is complete as we just get ready to go racing here, and all of our drivers, of course, will be taken away from the start-finish line here. We have got the full lap in terms of the full formation lap, and it will be Kenny Heremans who takes everybody away and gets themselves set behind the safety car here. And I think Kenny Heremans right now has got a lot of pressure on his shoulders in terms of he needs to nail this start. But one driver right now who I think will be very relieved at this situation and will be looking at this as the biggest opportunity he's had in a long time is the Luxem 24 of MV Esports, our reigning champion of Billy Fletcher there, the left-hand one of the two Luxem 24 with MV Esports machines, and that is in the Audi R8, of course, as the pro driver will need a major point score here, and he will need to get on the move fast because Matt Caruana has qualified further down the order, only by a couple of places, to be fair, but it is the case that Matt Caruana being behind Fletcher, which we haven't typically seen. We've normally seen the two of them very close with Caruana just ahead, but this is a major opportunity for Billy Fletcher as they make their way around on this parade lap. Now, meanwhile, outside of where's the pro class, Matthew Hodges here, where he's not close enough to Callum Reid Garton to say he's on the same row. He's a couple of rows back, but I think Matthew Hodges, if he just keeps it smart and keeps it consistent over the course of the opening couple laps, you never know what can happen here. And remember, Zolder, known for its very high curbs, its tricky apexes, and it only takes one wrongly taken apex, one wrongly hit curve to upset a driver's race massively, and that I think is what a lot of drivers will be thinking right now. They won't be thinking about doing the fastest possible lap, even though this is a sprint. It's a 15-minute sprint, and it is the case you've got to go fast, but it's about nailing lap after lap, as we see Navarro DeBova and Jurgen Nocker here making their way side by side down towards what is turn number 7 right now, and it will be Jurgen Nocker, of course, who starts ahead of Navarro DeBova when they pull themselves into the proper formation for the rolling start, and as they make their way on through the chicane. The second of the chicanes right now, everybody just itching to go racing. As we can see here on the blimp camera, the order of cars, all 34 drivers making their way on through the sequences of quarters right now. Fantastic to see the Snake Trail cars as they make their way through, with Peter Kupiers and Arjen Kregel right at the back of that pack, but no less important as the RP Motorsports rookie driver of Peter Kupiers will line up at the back of the field. But we bring the camera up towards the front right now as our leaders make their way through turn number 9, and they get ready very shortly to go racing as the safety car will peel into the pits when they run up towards the turn 11 chicane, and then it will be Kenny Heremans who has the opportunity to take us away for racing in race number 1 in the Apex Racing Academy lobby. This is round number 9 of the NXTGEN GT3 Racing Championship on iRacing, and indeed what fantastic racing we've got as they come on through to start the race. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 as immediately Kenny Heremans goes to the start, and you can see the concertina effects as the field bunch up behind. Heremans holds in the middle, Oystein Hereford on the inside, and as they come up into the corner they all make it through. Deegan Fairclough tries to go round but he can't quite find it, but he looks up to the inside now versus Oystein Hereford. He goes for an early move here, you can go for that into turn 2, and you can see Billy Fletcher also trying to capitalise as the Audi drivers had a very poor run and a very poor start. The two of them are side by side as they come roaring up into turn number 4. They make their way on through the corner. Behind you can see Matt Caruana already on the offensive, making his way past Callum Reid Garton as they come roaring on down towards the Kleiner chicane as they make their way on this long run. You can see Kenny Heremans going defensive as they all go 2 by 2. Oh goodness me, Billy Fletcher has been turned across the chicane, and that's the case. Everybody's got to come on through. Major instant almost there as they make their way on through the sequence of corners, and you can see as our drivers get themselves back up to speed. I think Matthew Hodges has been involved in an instant with a couple of other drivers as well. There has been a major series of collisions, but most drivers are making it through as they come up towards the second chicane. We will take a look back at what's happened very shortly as they make their way through that second chicane right now and coming through turn 7. But you can see further down the order how a lot of drivers trying to go side by side. I believe that's Anthony Beck there, side by side with the Ferrari of what was at the time Gus Franken, and neither driver wanting to back out, and it's Gus Franken who's gained as they make their way down into the braking zone for turn 9 here. And you can see how Anthony Beck really having to work hard right now to try and keep the bright esports machine of Daniel Holmer behind him, but Daniel Holmer on the inside has got the move done, and he moves up a position here as we are behind Jochen Seeger up into P6 right now in class P22 overall as he makes his way past Hakan Gustad. So after one lap, it is Kenny Heremans leading ahead of Deegan Fairclough in P2. Matt Caruana P3, Jason Landry P4, followed by Tom Edmonds P5. Those are the pros. Then it's Jeremy DeBova leading the Prime class here in P6 overall, ahead of Callum Reid Garton, then Dirk Bounce, followed by DDD Verlaine. Then it's Jürgen Nocker P10 overall, P1 in class in the AM class as Robert Sunik is in P11, Navarro DeBova P12, followed by Jean-Louis Desschans P13, Ben Hicks P14, then Kurt Van Hoenacker P15, followed by Matthew Addy and Gus Franken. Then it's Daniel Holmer P18, ahead of Anthony Beck and Jaco Boschoff, completing our top 20 as they make their way around on this second lap. Now as they come rolling on through, we will very shortly take a look back at what exactly happened on that opening lap incident, and particularly we'll be kicking off with what happened to Billy Fletcher, who seemed to have the mother of all moments coming into the chicane, and I do wonder if there was a tap on the rear end of Billy Fletcher which led to that all kicking off. Well, we will try and find out very shortly for you folks what exactly happened. We're also hearing that George Bland and Arjun Kregel had to come in together, I think, and we'll take a look back at that first and foremost. So this was right at the start. Now we're looking at George Bland here. He's the focus of our camera work, and as he makes his way out of the corner, he loses the rear end through 3. The rear just becomes unsettled, and well, Arjun Kregel the same, and Kregel very unfortunately going into Bland, and well, that is the way you do not want it to happen, and well, that is an absolutely dire moment for the pair. And well, with that happening, we also take a look back at what happened to Billy Fletcher. Making his way down into the corner, it looked as though, if anything happened, there was contact between him and Oystein Hereford, which set off a chain of events, and then with the cars knocked about on the circuit, we're going to see Matt Caruana got himself back up to speed immediately, and well, it was the case further down as everybody came through. We could see that Ferrari returning and taking cars with it, but it does look as though there was some contact there, I think, between Oystein Hereford and Billy Fletcher. At least that's what our camera showed us, but enough looking at replays, that's what the stewards to do. Let's take a look at the live racing action once again as our drivers go on to lap number 3, and it's Kenny Heremans defending versus Deegan Fairclough as they make their way down towards the client chicane this time around. And you can see what Deegan Fairclough is trying to do is, in fact, Fairclough has got ahead. He's just simply done it under braking there, very aggressive. I was going to say he's trying to force a move on the inside and get Heremans to back out, and he's done exactly that. He's literally preempted what we're going to say, and as a result, as he's now up into lead, can he break away? We know it is the case that Fairclough was looking very fast in qualifying, as meanwhile Matt Caruana in P3, whereas he makes his way through turn number 7 and now heads on through and up towards turn at number 9. It is the case that Matt Caruana just carrying that momentum and trying to do everything he can. So Oystein Hereford has jumped to the pits. He's had another instant I've heard that Oystein Hereford has had, but this is our top 3 right now, and behind Jason Landry, who the beef here, the Delta Motorsport driver, will be absolutely smiling from ear to ear about this, because normally it's in the feature race where we see him shining up towards the front, but today it's the sprint race as well, as Jeremy DeBova up into P5 overall and flying. And there's Tom Edmonds coming on through. We've had some passes occur whilst everything's been going on, and well, where is Matt Caruana, I hear you ask? Because Matt Caruana just seems to have disappeared all the way down the order after the open lap incident. We'll try and find out for you very shortly. Well, in fact, no, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm completely losing my eyesight. He's in P3 right now. Oh no, I'm trying to think of who we have lost, and I think it's just, well, Billy Fletcher dropped out much earlier on. Oystein Hereford, that's the driver who we're looking for, who's just disappeared down the order even more so as Matt Caruana continues to soldier on here. And well, Tom Edmonds in that P5 and that P6 position, P5 in class right now, sandwiched between 2 at primes here, and it's Jeremy DeBova who has got Callum Reid Garton pursuing him, and we ride on board with Callum Reid Garton as he gives that pursuit, but first he's got to find his way past the RD Sim Sport Pro of what is Tom Edmonds as they make their way through the chicane. You can see Callum Reid Garton not hesitating at all there, under braking and follow through for the Kleiner chicane, and he's going to look to the outside to inside here through 6 and into 7. It's going to be very bold on the brakes, and he's almost there. You can go too wide through the chicane, the second chicane, but it's very difficult, and it's near impossible to make a pass there unless the driver who you're battling with completely backs out. It does look as though Callum Reid Garton find that Tom Edmonds is not one to back out. He's going to go for the move this time into 9. And as he comes on through, he's going to get it done very smoothly indeed. Callum Reid Garton gaining another place and now chasing down Jeremy DeBova, who's only just ahead of him. And there's still the best part of what is 9 minutes of this race to go, including the final lap. But we look away from these guys briefly and a bit further back, and what we can see here is that Ben Hicks and the Ignium Motorsport Blades Ferrari on the offensive versus Jean-Louis Desschans. And these guys battling for P5 in the Prime class, what is P13 overall. They're clustered together behind Navarro DeBova as they make their way out of the final corner and on to another lap. And we do look backwards on the gearbox here of Jean-Louis Desschans as they go on to what for them is lap number 5. Now hearing the roar of the Porsche course, it comes into turn number 1 and makes its way on through the corner right now, and you can see it is the case that we do have Ben Hicks following very closely indeed and really staying in the railway lines which are being formed by Jean-Louis Desschans. And we say railway lines in terms of that cut through the air in front as they make their way through 3 and now up into turn number 4. Now where can Ben Hicks really go for it here versus the highly nimble Porsche? Well, I think he's got to try and do it in what is the run from turn 4 down to turn 5. He's got to have a good run through the opening corners and try to put the pressure on Jean-Louis Desschans to make a mistake, because otherwise I think Jean-Louis Desschans is going to feel very comfortable for the most part across the lap, and that Ferrari is not going to be able to spread its wings and fly as they make their way over the ridge and down towards turn number 7. As they come roaring on through this time, it is the case that both drivers staying as they were, as we're hearing that Matthew Hodges has jumped to the pits after an off-out circuit. But we look to the exterior cameras of this battle right now, not too much change happening, as meanwhile Hackenschott battling here with what is Jakob Boschov, and I believe that is also one of the Ferraris that's off the lap, and it's down lap effectively. And well, as they make the way on through, was it down lap? That was Lucas Romano behind. No, he wasn't down lap, was the RP Motorsports Juniors driver. It was the case that he just simply had a very difficult run through the corner and decided to back out completely and lose the positions there, but keeping the car safe as they make their way on through. And as they come through turn number 10 and up towards 11 right now, Lucas Romano being passed there by Hackenschott through what was the turn 7 chicane, and just keeping that momentum going strong as they make their way down towards turn 11 and through once again here. Well, halfway through the race, we've still got half of it to go, plenty of racing action to come. And well, in terms of the start of this race, we have lost 2 drivers. It's Matthew Hodges and Oystein Hereford, both drivers being involved in respective incidents and having their cars taken to the pits and not able to get those cars repaired from what we're hearing. We've still got 32 drivers out on the circuit as they continue to soldier out the circuit Zolder. And as Lucas Romano here tries to get himself back into contention for what is effectively the top 10 of the Prime class. He's P11 in Prime right now, effectively P23 overall. We can see pushing on through here, and we've got a bit of dust being kicked up out of the gravel there. A lot of drivers running a bit wide, putting a couple of wheels wide. It is the case that no changes between these guys, but meanwhile, a bit further up the road, you can see that Daniel Holmer does have the pressure of Håkon Gustad, and Gustad's going to try and come on through here, and Daniel Holmer, I think, is going to back out into turn 7. He does indeed. He doesn't fight this. And he doesn't need to be fair, because if he was to fight it, he'd be fighting against what is a Prime drive. Well, he'd be fighting against a Pro would, Daniel Holmer versus his Prime classification. So as a result, it'd only be cost himself time as they make their way through 8 and down towards 9 here into the heavy braking zone. They come once again, but it's the case they've swapped positions, and now Håkon Gustad will continue to pursue. But his next target up front is Robert Asunik, who's in P6 in the Pro class. But Robert Asunik is the best part of 7 positions up the road in P10 overall. Håkon Gustad, however, P17, and that's how the early instance of really cost Håkon Gustad, in the fact he has not been able to make that much ground since then. But meanwhile, speaking about making ground, we can see Callum Reid Garton here making the build up to the offensive versus what is Jeremy DeBova. We ride on board with Callum Reid Garton as he comes through turn 3 and up towards turn number 4, and as they make their way through the right hand here, it is the case that Callum Reid Garton puts in that pressure on. Now, to be fair, Jeremy DeBova, we know how well Jeremy DeBova can defend in a battle situation. We know he can make his choice of car incredibly wide, so wide in fact there's not enough room for 2 cars. And as they make their way through the kind of chicane there, I'm not sure if he's going to go defensive. He puts in the middle of the road, does Jeremy DeBova. Now this is interesting. Will Callum Reid Garton try and force the issue? No, he backs out. He's wise. He knows that Jeremy DeBova is trying to get him to go into a very difficult position. And as they make their way through turn number 7 now and come on through to complete the long sequence that is turn 7 and now into the crest of 8, it is the case that you can see Callum Reid Garton there. Jeremy DeBova goes defensive into 9. It's on the brakes. But it's the case that Callum Reid Garton goes deep as Jeremy DeBova literally squeezes him to the bare minimum room, Both drivers, they're getting very feisty, and now as they make their way down towards Hicks, you can see it's the case that Garton's holding that inside, forcing Jean-Louis Desschans into that inside line under braking. But again, it's a left into right chicane. It's not just a left-hand corner, and as a result, it means that Callum Reid Garton gets clustered in behind Jean-Louis Desschans as they make their way across the timing line. Now, the BMW, we know it can be very strong in the medium speed sections of the circuit, and as they make their way into Sector 1, this is where Callum Reid Garton has literally got to attach himself back to the highly manoeuvrable Audi in front of him. And as they come up into 2, you can see Jean-Louis Desschans once again putting himself right in the middle of the road each and every time. But in doing this, what he's doing is he costs himself average speed into the corner. And Callum Reid Garton, if he knows when Jean-Louis Desschans is going to place the car into the middle of the circuit and really take the pace out of that, what Callum Reid Garton can do, he can back off prematurely and then come into the corner if he times it right really quickly. And that's what he's done through turn 4. He's backed off enough that he can get a run, but he's not got enough distance to make that run count. And as they come through turn number 5 through the Klein chicane here, is the case. These two, the closest battlers on the circuit right now, and battling for the Pro-Am class lead, and we're staying with it as Lucas Romano has jumped to the pits. And what we're hearing, we can see that Callum Reid Garton just not able to force a way through right now. I think he's going to have to do it. I think he's going to have to find an overspeed and just send the car down the inside when he gets that opportunity. Of course, Jean-Louis Desschans will know about that, and that's why you've seen Desschans put the car in these awkward positions in the middle road, which he's allowed to do. He's not changing position. He's allowed to make one move, and his decision is he's going to make that Audi literally fill up the entire of the middle of the roadway, and he's going to make Callum Reid Garton literally have to risk putting 2 wheels onto the grass under braking in order to come through. Of course, he's giving him just about enough room, and Jean-Louis Desschans knowing just how wide these cars are and knowing what he is and is not allowed to do, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. It's much like, let's say, for example, Fernando Alonso battling with Lewis Hamilton at the Hungaroring in the F1 2021 season. It really is the case that Jean-Louis Desschans right now digging in and showing just what you can do when you're under that pressure as they make the way onto what is lap number 9 right now. 3 minutes to go, 3 more laps including this one, we believe, and as they make the way on through, it's the case that Callum Reid Garton has got to find a way on through against the venerable Jean-Louis Desschans, the Briton hunting down the Belgian as they make the way up towards turn number 4. But we look from them to a bit further down the order right now, and what I can tell you is that further down in P7 in the Pro-Am class, Daniel Holmer closing up to the back of Billy Fletcher here, but Billy Fletcher gradually cutting his way through the field and trying to find his way up the order, and it's not going right for Billy Fletcher at this point in time. Indeed, that early lap incident has hold up a second, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've had a bit of a moment here, and what has happened to Callum Reid Garton and Jean-Louis Desschans? They both had it off according to our timing screen, but only one of them has emerged safely. Well, we'll have to wait and see as we take a look back at exactly what happened. So making their way down into the chicane here, Jean-Louis Desschans literally throwing the Audi over the apex. Oh, goodness me. And, well, Callum Reid Garton will not be happy about that. I'm sure of that as he makes his way back up to speed. And, well, we'll take a look from on board here, and you'll see Jean-Louis Desschans just hits the second apex of the Klein chicane too hard. And Callum Reid Garton went free, trying to go around the outside and build up the speed. But in the end, Jean-Louis Desschans, who had nothing left of the control of the car other than to put the throttle down and get it to straight line out, well, there was contact between the two of them, and I think that is going to be very, very contentious with the stewards right next to it. It means Jean-Louis Desschans holds on to the lead, and I think he will now have enough in order to bring home the win in the Pro-Am class, at least on circuit. But whether the stewards deem that it was more than a racing incident, well, it's up to you, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's a case that I'm just a commentator, but if they decide it's more than a racing incident, I do wonder whether Jean-Louis Desschans could see the win taken away from him, or at least a time penalty applied. And, well, we will let the stewards decide on that one as we see Tom Edmonds moves up into P5 overall and P5 in the Pro class, now getting past Jean-Louis Desschans. And meanwhile, a bit further down the road, we can see how it is the case. DD blaming here, the McChange B1 driver hunting down a dirt bounce just ahead of him, as meanwhile up the head and in the lead it is Kenny Hermans, who's just retaken the lead. How has he done it versus Deegan Fairclough? Let's take a look. Well, this was in the run then, coming out of the Klein chicane and down into 6. And Kenny Hermans here, this was very brave. He's gone all in, and be fair, Deegan Fairclough reacting immediately by braking early to get Hermans to outbrake himself. We return to live pictures, and they are still battling here and now as they make their way out to 9 and up towards 10. There's going to be one more lap after this, and it is the Audi driver just ahead of the Lamborghini driver as they make their way into the braking zone for the chicane. As they come on through, and you can see Hermans goes deep. Fairclough tries to cut back. Both drivers literally on the ragged edge, as there's now one more lap, and Matt Caruana is only 1.4 seconds back and closing. As you can see, Kenny Hermans getting flashed there by Deegan Fairclough, who sends it to the inside. It's the case that now it's Deegan Fairclough who leads as they make their way into 2-3. now as they make their way through the backwards combination of 2 and 3 here. We can see it is the case that right now Fairclough leading, but not by much, and Caruana now only 7 tenths off the back of this as they make their way through turn number 4. Now can Caruana potentially capitalise and gain another position, or perhaps both, and sneak the win off of them come the end of this lap? We'll have to wait and find out as they make their way down towards the braking zone here for the Kleiner chicane. And as they come on through, we can see Albury drivers as Heremans bounces over the apex there of the second part of the chicane. That's cost him time, and he's going to fall back a little bit now. He could be vulnerable under braking to Caruana, but as they make their way through what is turn at number 7 now, as they come through the chicane, then into the double right that completes turn 7, you can see Fairclough just gradually dropping what is Kenny Heremans there as they make the way through 8 and now down into 9. They come roaring on through and into the braking zone. I think Heremans is way too far back to look for a move now. I think it is the case that Dean Fairclough has got this one to the finish line, unless he gets it wrong in the final corner. Don't say it so. It's not over yet until he crosses that finish line, and as he makes his way into the braking zone, all smooth now. He just needs to keep it cool. The checker flag is out, and it is going to be, after 15 minutes in the sprint, Dean Fairclough who takes the win in the Pro Class and overall at Circuit Zolder sprint ahead of Kenny Heremans, and Matt Caruana completes the Pro podium. Jason Landry a well-deserved P4 in the end, and then it's going to be Tom Edmonds P5 who crosses the line, and meanwhile it will then be Jeremy DeBova who takes the win in the Pro class on circuit ahead of Callum Reid Garton P2 in the Pro class, and Dirk Bounce completes the Pro podium with Didi Verlaine coming home P9, P4 in the class. Robert Desschans completes our top 10, and it is Jürgen Nocker who crosses the line, our winner in the M class here, with a great drive from the McChange B1 driver. Indeed, he will feel as though it is a well-earned return to form. He finishes ahead of Jean-Louis Desschans, Navarro DeBova, who comes home P13 overall, P2 in the AM class. Then it's Ben Hicks and Kurt Van Hoenacker completing our top 15 and completing our AM podium. And Kurt Van Hoenacker there, well, it was a good result for him, and I think he'll take that one and move forward with it. And he finishes ahead of Hakon Gestad. Then it's Matthew Addy who finishes P17 overall, P4 in the AM class. And then Billy Fletcher, Daniel Holmer and Jakob Boschoff completing our top 20. It's Hakon Schott P21, you can see at P22, Anthony Bechtwit P23, and then it'll be Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen in the end recovers to P24 overall, P6 in class, and then Gus Franken completes our top 25. And what an absolutely brilliant race from our drivers. As we see Robert Desschans here making his way on through the corners. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back very shortly for our post-race interviews with our race winners. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are set for our post-race interviews with our race winners, and it did look a very difficult race out there in the sprint race. A number of incidents, particularly on the opening lap, which saw a number of drivers' races put upside down and out of order. And I think there's going to be a number of drivers who are not going to be too happy about that one and will be looking to take it to the stewards. But speaking about drivers who are going to be happy, let's kick off with our AM winner, and that is Jürgen Nocker, as we hear from the number 273 driver. Hello, Jürgen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Jürgen, congratulations on the win in the AM class at Circuit Zolder in the sprint. How's it feel to be back on the top step after quite a hiatus?
Yeah, it took a while, but I'm here with a very big smile on my face because it was it's a home race. I really enjoyed it, and I saw I had the pace maybe to do it today in the sprint race. So I'm pretty happy to be on the top step, and very proud of my two teammates, Kurt and Navarro, who are 2 and 3.
Oh, indeed, it was a Challenge B lockout across the podium in the AM class, and I have to ask, what's the secret to success? Because it looked as though in qualifying everything was going perfectly, and in the race you just seemed unstoppable.
Well, we don't really have secrets, but we did also the 24-hour race here on iRacing, and so that gave us a little advantage when we start practicing for that race here. But yeah, the secret is training together and helping each other out. So giving the small astuces just to find some seconds or some tenths here and there.
Oh, that definitely makes sense. Indeed, that group work, well, the teamwork makes the dream work, and it has come through. But focusing a bit on yourself, a bit of a difficult start for everybody. There was quite a few major incidents going into the first chicane. Just take us through what that was like from your perspective, because you had to navigate quite a few cars going left, right and centre.
Yeah, of course. I had Jeremy that was in front of me at the Pro-Am class, because he already told me watch out. But I was a bit lucky in fact that I went through with not too much damage, or I had a hit from behind, but it didn't affect my lap times. And I was a little bit careful at the first few laps. Zolder is tricky; it's narrow, especially that first chicane is very special to enter and to exit. So you have to be careful on that one. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. And then after that, it seems as though you settled into a rhythm and just got on with the job. Was it the case from that point onwards you were just managing it to a certain lap time? Because we know how dangerous the curbs can be here at Zolder.
Well, I was running about like a little second above my fastest lap times, but it does not make sense to push. I kept the advantage on my relative. I looked at it every lap, and I saw that I was okay. So I didn't have to push really to do low 28s to keep my advantage, though I didn't do it. Yeah.
I see. And now looking ahead to the feature race, what's the plan for 60 minutes around Zolder?
Well, at the first plan is survive the first 1-2 laps, let's say, and then see where we are and make the best of it. Of course, I think I'm starting quite at the front because I do not much races in the league because of my professional life. I cannot always join. So I will see. Just survive the first few laps and then hopefully do it again. You never know.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature, but until then, congratulations on the win in the sprint race. Well deserved, and thank you for joining us in the interview room.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, and speak to you soon, maybe. Thank you very much.
Maybe. Take care.
Goodbye.
So hearing there from Jürgen Nocker, very happy with his performance there, and where you can hear, not breaking too much of a sweat by the sounds of things. Sounds as though it was a very well-driven start-to-finish run. And, well, we go from one Challenge BE driver to another. We head to Jeremy DeBova. Let's get him in. As we bring in our Pro-Am winner. Hello, Jeremy. Can you hear me?
Hello, Paul. Good evening.
Jeremy, a solid drive from yourself from start to finish and a lot of pace at your fingertips, and in the end, it was enough to bring home the win. How do you feel to be on the top step of the Pro-Am class?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here at once. I try every week hard to work to go so high as possible, and now I have a normal race. I think I make one little mistake on the chicane, that I fly a little bit in airborne, but I couldn't hold it when I come down. I think Garton was just left behind me, but you know there is no space to go over there at Zolder. Thus, for me, was quite normal and very happy to be here on the first step.
Well, that's brilliant to hear. And we'll come on to the contact between yourself and Garton in a minute, just to talk about that briefly. But more importantly, to start with, good start from yourself. Obviously, made your way into the lead of the Pro-Am class quite early on. And I think it was a case of trying to navigate a lot of cars having a major incident ahead of you into the chicane. Where were you caught up in all of that?
For me, it was a little bit lucky because I saw on the chicane there was an accident and I saw the gap. For me, was quite normally. I tell to my guys from the team that they will watch out for it, and from that on, I just try a normal pace, just practice laps for me, and then I saw Garton come down to me, and then I have of course a little bit of pressure again. But here at Zolder, you have no much to overtake here chances, and it was quite okay for me.
Indeed, and we saw some brilliant defensive driving from yourself, some great side-by-side moments. In the end, the battle between yourself and Callum Reid Garton all came down to some contact at the Kleiner chicane, and we saw you hit the second apex curb really hard and really high. Just take us through that. Did you outbrake yourself, or was it the case that you'd gone in trying to cut it as much as possible, but a bit too much?
Well, it was for myself. I brake a little bit farther than normally, but with my hand controls, it's not so easy to get it every turn and every braking zone at the same time. It's quite hard to drive like this. But it was a little mistake from myself, but I could hold him when I come back, and from that on, it was try to focus again and make not the same mistake. And I did it quite okay, I think.
Oh, indeed. And whilst it was unfortunate, of course, the battle was decided through that contact. Of course, it happens in motorsport. And, well, with that, how are you now feeling for the feature race?
I am on P5, I think, on the championship. So I have to start on the back of my class. And like I say just before, it's here are not much overtaking zones. But I hope with the how we say the track that we know very well, that we can make the difference here.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature, but until then, thank you for joining us in the interview and congratulations on the Pro-Am win in the sprint.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
So hearing there from Jeremy Debova, who, as he was saying, very difficult to nail each braking zone time and time again. Zolder, a very tricky circuit. And one other thing, just to quickly clarify, ladies and gentlemen, we might have the opportunity to cover this in a more dedicated article at some point in the series. When you heard Jeremy Debova there mention that racing with, also in his situation, racing with his hand in particular. He does race with a disability. We're not going to go into it too much, but it's quite a unique disability, shall we say, and it's something which he races with, and well, it's absolutely amazing how he races at such intense pace given his situation. But we'll talk more about that another time, but it's just food for thought as we now come on to what is our Pro winner, and that is Deegan Fairclough. Let's bring him in and hear from the Pro P1 man. Hello, Deegan, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Brilliant. Well, Deegan, congratulations on the win in the sprint race in the Pro class. How does it feel to be on the top step in what was a very fast and furious Audi R8?
Yeah, really happy about that. Had a pretty good start, was really close behind Kenny into turn one. Managed to get into second after that, and then I had to make the move as quick as possible on Kenny, and then try push as hard as I could to pull away. But then we were keeping the exact same distance for a while, and then I had a little mistake for the chicane, which made him catch me up and then get an overtake into the chicane.
Indeed, it was brilliant battling between the two of you through and time again we saw you both sharing the same bit of road side by side. And well, you two, there's no love lost between you. We've seen some brilliant side by side battling between you both before, but it really looked as though both you were giving you all, you're looking for cutbacks on one another. What was the sort of plan in the end with regards to getting the pass done?
I just going into that last lap, yeah, I just want to say a massive well done to Kenny. First of all, it was brilliant, super clean, and massive respect to him. Yeah, going into the final lap, I just knew I had to get it done as soon as possible. So I had to send a massive lunge into turn one because it's kind of hard to overtake at this track at everywhere else. Like a chicane is really tight and it's really risky. So I just knew had to get it over and done with as quick as possible and then try push for the rest of the lap, and then it worked out. So really happy about that.
And I have to ask, when you both went through the Kleiner chicane on the final lap, you had a very smooth run, whereas Kenny seemed to hit the second apex quite high and lost the time. Was there a bit of a smile starting to creep onto your face and thinking, now all I've got to do is half a lap and I've got no pressure anymore?
Well, yeah, massive grin come up on my face, and I was just like maintain focus and was just like not wanting to have any mistakes that could cost me the win. So yeah, super happy with that race and some great battling with Kenny, and yeah, super happy.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And well, looking ahead to the feature now, which is only moments away, how are you feeling for the feature?
Yeah, it's an hour long, so I'm just gonna keep focused, stay calm, and pick some moves like sensibly because it's an hour long race. Before my pit stops haven't been really quick, so I'm gonna try get them a little bit quicker this time because I lose a lot of time in the pit. So if I can just keep it clean and pick a move sensibly, cleanly, and then hopefully go for that's my target, is to go for the win. So anything can happen.
Indeed, anything can, but we look forward to seeing how you get on. But with that, thank you for joining us in the interview room, and congratulations once again for the win in the sprint race.
Thank you very much, guys.
So hearing there from Deegan Fairclough with what was an absolutely brilliant performance and the brilliant side-by-side battling between him and also Kenny Herrmans through and through, and the credit there which Deegan was passing on to his rival throughout the battling. And we look forward to seeing whether Deegan can make it to outer two. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are only a couple of minutes away from getting underway with what is the feature race. We'll be right back in approximately 2 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere for the build-up for the feature race. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we're back racing once again very shortly. Right now, we're in practice, of course, in the build-up to what is the feature race number 2, which is only now 1 minute away from the gridding process. And as our drivers make the way around in this practice session, getting in their last couple of minutes, we just briefly saw a word there from our primary sponsor for Lobby 1. That's Apex Racing Academy. Of course, a brilliant community and a brilliant company to go to if you're looking to improve your racecraft, indeed improve your overall race pace on the iRacing simulator, with multiple coaching sessions, professional teachers, and also a partnership with SDK Gaming, which enables you to take the data and the setups right to the PC, and all the data is there on your doorstep. You don't have to go hunting for replay, ghost, or setup files. But right now, our drivers won't be thinking about any of that. What they'll be thinking about is they're going hunting for places in the feature. Now, we saw in the sprint that this man in particular, Billy Fletcher, very heavily inconvenienced under braking into the opening chicane, and seeing his race go from what was looking a solid start into a disastrous end of lap 1, and as a result, having to make a recovery drive. And he will be towards the back, of course, of the Pro Class, given that he is currently P3 in the Pro Class standings. So he'll be starting alongside effectively Matt Caruana, and will Billy Fletcher be able to turn around that horrific run of form in the AM race? No, not from the AM race, my apologies. That horrific run of form in the sprint race, and well, see if he can cut his way through the field to the front of the pros. We'll have to wait out to find out. But meanwhile, when I say AMs, we're talking about his teammate, the AM driver of Luxem 24 of MV Esports, and Matt Emmons here, who had a difficult sprint race as well, finishing just inside the top 30. Will he be able to turn it around for his championship hopes? Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. We have what is now the grid being set for what is the feature race. So without further ado, let's take you through the grid. So starting on pole, it will be Deegan Fairclough, one of our lowest placed drivers in the Pro Championship. Alongside him will be Kenny Heremans. No love lost between those two. Of course, brilliant battling between them, and we look forward to seeing them going toe-to-toe once again from the start of this race. On the second row, Robert de Sunik and Jason Landry, Oystein Hereford and Hacker Gustave. On the third row, Billy Fletcher and Matt Caruana, with only 8 pros taking part tonight, forming what is the pro group. Now it'll be James Slates who leads away the Pro-Ams, with Didi Valaming alongside him on row number 5, and then it will be the case that we do have a bit further behind them Hackenschott and Lucas Romano on row number 6. Row number 7 will consist of Anthony Beck and Dirk Bounce, with Jeremy Debova and Jakob Boschhoff on row number 8, Daniel Holmer and Matthew Hodges on row number 9, and then Jean-Louis Desschans and Ben Hicks on row 10, before Callum Reid Garton has row number 11 shared between him and an AM driver, as he is our championship leader in what is the Pro-Am class. It'll then be Jürgen Nocker alongside him, the AM driver there, starting at the head of the AM class pack, given he's the lowest placed man in the championship, as he has been able to take part in the majority of the races this season. It'll be Peter Kupiers and Ronald Van Utrecht behind him on row number 12. And then as we look further down, it will be the case that we do have Gus Franken and Navarro Debova making up row number 13, with Kurt Van Hoenack and Arjun Kregel on row number 14, George Ban and Jochen Siegert on row 15, Matthew Addy and Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen on row 16, starting right at the back, and well, no less important indeed, our championship leader in the AM class, Matt Emmons, starting P33 with Peter Kupiers. If he is able to make it out, they're still doing work on the car. I believe they're having difficulty getting the car started right now. Peter Kupiers, our 34th driver, will be starting from the pit lane. That's right now, all of our drivers get ready to go racing. But indeed, it is going to now be a challenge for all of them over 60 bits, because we heard in all 3 of our interviews, overtaking here comes at a premium. It is very difficult to overtake at what is the Zolder circuit. Those overtaking opportunities do not come often, and all of our drivers will need to find a way to try and cipher their way on through and gain those positions as they do. And well, one man who will know all about that and the need to cipher his way on through will be one Matt Caruana, who, as he makes his way through the Klein chicane on this parade lap, he is our championship leader in the Pro class. And with Luke McKeown unable to take part tonight, he will, of course, Caruana, be thinking about trying to maximise his point scores after that P3 in the sprint race. He will want the win in this feature race, and he'll want the fastest lap to go with it. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, it is a huge opportunity now for drivers such as what is Hackenschott, for example, to try and get a good start and then just break away and hold position. The Bright Esports driver, who we have seen a revival form from the Swede, will he be able to turn around a good result in the feature race? We'll have to wait and see. And what about Matthew Hodges, of course, the CXR Project Black driver, who didn't have it go his way in the sprint, having to jump to the pits? Can he make up for a difficult sprint in the feature? And as we look to our AMs right now, can George Bland turn things around and not see the car turned around at turns 2 and 3? Well, the MV Esports driver will let us know in a short while. But as they all now make their way down towards what is the turn number 9 right-hander, and you see George Bland actually going onto the grass very briefly. We look to the front of the field, and it's Deegan Fairclough who will be leading our drivers away very shortly. As we do see the livery of Deegan Fairclough's car finally loading in their Audi ARA, their lovely livery, the white and red livery, as they make their way on down, and it will be the Audi driver who takes us away for the feature. And it's lights out and away we go as Deegan Fairclough takes us away there on the green. The Pro Pack going to war immediately, as you can see. The three in the back of what is Billy Fletcher, Oystein Herford and Matt Caruana, and also Hackle Gestad getting into a 4 wide there very briefly. And it's Oystein Herford who's knocked wide as all the primes now come on through, and Oystein Herford keeping himself right on the edge of the circuit as they make their way through the sequence of corners. And as they come into turns 2 and 3 right now, it is the case that the primes have still got James Slates leading after that incident coming into turn number 1 of the pros there, and nobody being inconvenienced. Oystein Herford making sure to stay well clear. Meanwhile, in the further back of the primes, we can see here already Ben Hicks ahead of Matthew Hodges. They come through, Callum Reid Garton gaining 2 places, as meanwhile it is the case as they break down into the close chicanes. Back Caruana, Jason Landry going side by side, and Caruana trying to make it too wide and not getting it to work, and Billy Fletcher comes on through there, capitalising where Caruana got it wrong as they make their way up into turn number 7. They come into the second chicane as they come through. Landry takes the rally cross there, breaking way too deep on cold tyres, and he will be required to slow down, I believe, for that. As you can see, everybody now coming on through as they make their way up through the end of turn number 7 and up into 8. You can see how Jason Landry now having to worry about Hackle Gestad coming through, and James Slates as well trying to find his way through the gaps and trying to get in amongst the pros to give himself some space versus Hack and Shot. And it is a very tactical move there, and he's been able to do it. And now, having gained the position, it will be the case that James Slates will try and rough into the distance with Hack and Shot tucked in behind Jason Landry, but the Delta Motorsport driver may have other ideas. So after the opening lap, it is Deegan Fairclough leading right now by 7/10 of a second ahead of Kenny Hermans in P2. Much like in a way in the sprint race, these two inseparable it would seem. Robert Asunik P3, followed by Billy Fletcher P4, being pursued by Matt Caruana P5. The two rivals from Season 1 coming back together once again here in their endeavour in this feature race, as we can see Matt Caruana trying to snake his way up the inside into 2. Billy Fletcher having none of it. How can we just have P6? Next, James Slates, who's leading the pro class in P7 ahead of Jason Landry, the pro who lost out there under braking into turn number 7 on the previous lap. Hacken Shot P9, followed by DDD Blaming P10. Anthony Beck P11, followed by Dirt Bounce P12. Lucas Romano is in P13 meanwhile, and then it's Jakob Boshoff in P14 as we've got a car going off there, and it's that is, I believe, our championship leader of what is Callum Reid Garton, who's had a major moment. What happened to Callum Reid Garton? Was a tiny bit of contact with Jeremy DeBover there by Luxine. DeBover coming on through, and Callum Reid Garton just being pushed to the grass there with one wheel on the grass and under braking. Well, that just turned the car completely, and well, the two of them came together in the sprint under rather awkward circumstances, and now they've come together in more traditional circumstances in this one. I think Callum Reid Garton is going to be absolutely fuming with that one. As we continue down the order, we've got Jean-Louis Desschans in P15, and then it's Jeremy DeBover P16, Daniel Holman P17, Matthew Hodges P18, and then it is Ben Hicks in P19 before Jurgen Knocker, our leader in the AM class, is P20, completing our top 20 with all the AM class drivers giving pursuit right now as they come rip-roaring down towards turn number 11 once again. But as they make their way on down into the braking zone right now, are we seeing any major changes? Not currently. Everybody seems to be staying in formation, although I say that Ronaldo and Utrecht battling side by side here in Navarro de Bova as they make their way out of the corner, but Utrecht running out of momentum there, coming out of 11 as they make their way down to the braking zone for turn number 1 once again. They go on to lap number 3, and as they come down into the braking zone, you can see how Navarro de Bova's got ahead. It's the case Van Hoornaker's also come through as Matthew Addy tries to make his way on. It's going to be 3 wide almost as Matthew Addy goes to the double overtake here, and well, Matthew Addy absolutely capitalising as the Challenge B drivers just looked as though they were taking it nice and easy, and will Addy simply coming on through and taking one of them, or has he? As they make their way side by side through turn number 4, the camera pans round, and it is the case that Matthew Addy's actually had to back out. It almost was a 2-for-1 special, but he wasn't able to make it count, and now he's got to go again, as meanwhile Matthew Hodges trying to find his way and past the bright esports driver of what is Daniel Holmer, and he's done it into the Kleiner chicane, and now they make their way through what is turn at number 7 here, the long sequence of corners that make up turn number 7 as they come on through here and make their way up towards turn number 8 very shortly. But Matthew Hodges trying to regain some lost time from the sprint race as they make their way down towards turn number 9 once again. But as they come on through, we look back to Jürgen Nockert right now, who is latching onto the back of the Brian pack, is the AM driver, and trying to stay with them because he's got Gus Franken right behind us. We ride on board with Gus Franken here, P21 overall, P2 in the AM class is the RP Motorsport seniors driver here, the man from the Netherlands, as he makes his way roaring up behind Jürgen Nockert and trying to find his way on through in the Ferrari 488 GT3 of course. And as he comes through the corner right now, just not able to make that ground. As we are speaking about somebody who is making ground, Billy Fletcher setting the fastest lap of the race at 27.687 and trying to close up to Robert Dasunik in P3 as we stay here with our AM driver for a little bit longer as he makes his way through the opening half of the lap. And you can see just that smooth run through the corners here. And Gus Franken losing a little bit of the rear end there. You could hear the rear left tyre starting to just slip under braking. This Ferrari is so sensitive on entry into the medium speed corners. And as he comes into turn number 4, is the case just trying to stay with the Audi in front as they all come rip roaring on down towards the Kleiner chicane once again here. And really right now Gus Franken just keeping his head down and trying to build up that momentum with overtaking at such a premium. As we look to the external cameras, we can see Jochen Siegert here making his way through into what is P25. He goes around the outside of what is Renault Van Utrecht there. Very brave pass there from the German, as it's going to be the case that Van Utrecht tries to come back. They're side by side through 6. That's going to be a battle on the brakes, and oh goodness me, it looks like the next gen racing orange driver is going to keep in there as they make their way through the corner. You love to see it side by side, the pair of them, and it shows you can go too wide through turn 7, and it is Siegert who makes his way up a position. That's now into P6 in the AM class for the German driver, as he's now making more ground. He's hunting down Matthew Addy next, who's 3.7 seconds up the road. As you can see, just look at this. Renault Van Utrecht literally caught between a rock and a hard place because he's got Jochen Siegert and then Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen surrounding him. And Gamborg Rasmussen here, one of the 4 contenders for the AM Championship lead. You can see it being another one right now as they come on through the final chicane here. No change between these guys, but they are all sizing one another up. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, I'm hearing that Dirt Bounce and Anthony Beck are exchanging places and phone numbers as they go, as they make their way through turn 2 and into 3. And it's Anthony Beck on the inside as the camera pans round. And as they come out through 3, you can see it's Anthony Beck on the inside, Bounce on the outside. The Ignium Motorsport driver in the BMW just tries to hold firm versus the RP Motorsport Cedius drivers. They're still side by side in the long run down towards the Kleiner chicane, but now it is the case that Bounce has got ahead, and meanwhile we can see Lucas Romano trying to come on through as they make their way into the braking zone. Behind them you can see it's literally Jaco Bosch of the Ignium Motorsport Spark driver who's got the whole train, and Jean-Louis Desschans, Jeremy Dover and Matthew Hodges tucked in behind him here. They are literally all over the top of one another and trying to find a way on through, but none of them able to capitalise right now as they come through turn number 7 once again. But as they do, it is the case now. I think some patience is starting to wear a little bit. They've got a long way to go in this race. They're not even 10 minutes in. They're not even a sixth of the way into the hour, but everybody trying to gain those places and feeling as though they are losing critical time in the race distance. We'll have to wait and see. As meanwhile, looking a bit further up, speaking of someone who's trying to gain right now to go after Billy Fletcher, it is Matt Caruana here, who's got Hackengerstad between him. Of course, Hackengerstad, the pro driver, who we know has a brilliant rivalry and quite a number of episodes in terms of battles with Matt Caruana in the past. These two will be coming together, and hopefully no contact between us. Caruana sends it into turn number 2 from quite far back, but he can do that into turn 2. It is a wide apex corner. You've got a long braking zone, and Caruana deciding enough's enough. And you can see Hackengerstad, they're giving a flash of lights, I think, to say, look, I gave you that one, mate, but now pull me towards Billy Fletcher with you, please, as they make their way through 4 and up into 5. And as they come up towards the Kleiner chicane right now, Hackengerstad, I think, was just going to watch and wait, as we are hearing that Lucas Romano has had an off somewhere out on circuit, and we'll try to bring you what's happened very, very shortly, as Anthony Beck seems to have gone with him, and it's the case the 2 Pro-Am drivers have gone a long way down the order. This was only moments ago. That's Lucas Romano on the inside, Anthony Beck on the outs. Oh, goodness me. And Anthony Beck, that I'm not sure if it was Beck into Romano or the two of them just naturally coming together. It did look as though Beck had just lost the rear end very slightly, but that is a very unfortunate moment as they tried to go too wide there. And, well, they were giving one another racing room, but one of them got it wrong, and both of them went with it at the end of the day. As, meanwhile, we look back to live pictures now and looking a bit further down the order from our leaders, I can tell you it is the case that Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen Moosen now hunting after Yokosuka as they make their way around through turn at number 7, and it is the case that the Dane right now trying to hunt down the German in front of him as the Switchback Motorsports driver in the Ferrari 488 trying to close up under braking and doing admirably so here, using the Ferrari strengths, which is its handling and also its straight line speed to his advantage versus the BMW as they come roaring down towards turn at number 11 once again. Now what can Gamborg Rasmussen do in this situation? Well, he's got to make a call. He's got to decide whether the driver in front is costing him time or enabling him to make time, i.e. running at the pace that he wants to run at. If it's the case that he's losing time, he's going to have to send it. He's going to have to do much like what we saw Caruana do versus Gristad into turn 2. He's got to bring it in. He's got to bring that move fast and make sure that Yokosuka gets ready to receive it, because if not, then we could see some difficulty between the two of them as they make their way through turn at number 2 once again. But as they come through right now, we look to Matt Caruana, who comes roaring on down behind Billy Fletcher. Now he's been released. Hakuda has let him go, and as they make their way through turn number 7, it is the case that Matt Caruana now trying to go roaring after the roaring V10 engine of the Audi. Of course, both cars powered by the same Audi V10 5.2 litre engine, both naturally aspirated, and as they come on down right now, it's a case that it's the German machinery versus the Italian machinery, the Italian bull versus the German technology as they come through turn number 9 and 10, and as they fly on through right now with Billy Fletcher, I think with one eye forward, one eye back as we ride on board the gearbox here of the P4 man as he comes down to the braking zone. Door number 1, of course, because he is our reigning champion, and as they come through the chicanes, it is the case that the Briton holding on for now, but I think he is feeling a bit of pressure from behind as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again as they come roaring across that timeline. In the last lap, it was the case Matt Caruana 0.2 of a second faster as they now make their way up towards turn number 2, and you can see Caruana literally looking left, right, looking for that opportunity to try and send it, but he's not close enough to do so, and Fletcher will know about it. He'll put the car in a position where Caruana, if he's going to send it, will take the 2 of them, because he will not want Caruana coming on through as he goes a little bit deep into 4, and Caruana is now right there as they make their way down towards the Kleiner chicane, and this is what Caruana does. He gets close, he gets in your face, and Billy Fletcher parks it in the middle of the road here, looking at an opportunity at Robert Sunak as well. It is the case, I think, that Fletcher would love to get past the Team Racing Netherlands driver, but to do that he's got to get a little bit closer and force the issue as they make their way down into 7, under brake and they come, and as they do right now, it's the Audi driver caught in the Lamborghini sandwich as they make their way through 7, and as they come on through the right hander to go up towards 8, it is a situation where our 2 leaders of Kenny Hermans and Deegan Fairclough are being allowed to run away with things, albeit once Robert Sunak has been passed, if he can be passed, of course, because Robert Sunak, a very strong defensive driver. We do know that about the Dutchman, one of the better defensive drivers when he's on his day. And as they come on through right now, it's the case the Team Racing Netherlands driver will not want to throw away a potential top 3, if not a top 5, as they make their way into turn at number 11 here to complete the lap. They come to the end of lap number 8 right now, but Robert Sunak doing everything he can to hold on to that position, throwing the kitchen sink at it as they make their way across the timing lines and head down towards turn at number 1. You can see Matt Caruana again just trying to fake in a move. He can't quite make Billy Fletcher flinch. Instead, it is the case Fletcher's used to it. He knows if it's going to come, and as they come down into turn number 2, it is the case Fletcher just waits for the opportunity to attack Robert Sunak. But looking from them to the primes a bit further back, you can see how Didi Verlaine, meanwhile, in P10 is hunting down Hack and Shot right now for P9 overall. This is for P2 in the prime class, with James Slates a best part of 4.3 seconds up the road, as meanwhile I believe it's Billy Fletcher coming from Robert Sunak, and Robert Sunak has lost out to Matt Caruana as well, and Caruana is coming through like a freight train right now as they make their way down through turn number 6 and up towards 7. Now we're going to take a look back at how that all played out very shortly, but it looks as though with Billy Fletcher coming through, and it's the case that Caruana has just been able to come right up behind Fletcher. I'm not sure if there was a move into turn 4 which triggered this off. Let's take a look back and find out what exactly happened. So this was Matt Caruana only moments to go, coming through turn number 4. We're right on board with him, and you can see he's had a poor run. In fact, he runs wide, but not too wide to get a slowdown, and Billy Fletcher was just naturally faster, and Caruana carried the momentum through and went for the move under braking, which we then saw on camera. And Caruana saw the opportunity, and he knew he had to go for it, because otherwise Billy Fletcher would disappear off into the distance. As meanwhile now Hakon Gestad tries to close up to the back of Robert Sunik. Now, what you can see here from Håkon Grestad's perspective, as we look from the third-person cameras right now, it is the case that it looks like Robert Sunik is a bit off of the leader's pace, and indeed, as a result, Grestad, I think, will want to try and get past as soon as possible and try to get himself into that top 5 and stay with the rest of the top 5, because right now I think he feels he might be losing some time or an opportunity. But of course, it is one thing to catch, it is another thing to pass, as the great Murray Walker once said, as they make their way through turn number 4. But as they do so right now, looking back to our looking a bit further up, it is the case that our 2 major contenders in the Pro Championship, Billy Fletcher and Matt Caruana, literally oh goodness me, Caruana gets it horrifically wrong. He hits the apex way too high at the client chicane, and that is a jump to the pits. That is major damage to the car, and Caruana's race is now in the absolute shambles as a result. And well, with that, oh goodness me, could that be the turn of the momentum that Billy Fletcher needs? Because now he has a huge opportunity to get the win here if he can catch up to Heremans and Fairclough. We'll wait and see, as meanwhile Robert Sunik is passed there by Håkon Grestad. But my goodness, that happened in a very brief moment of time, and well, we did not expect that. And now as a result, it is the case that this race opens up massively in terms of who's going to be the winner, as it looks as though Robert Sunik right now loses out to Håkon Grestad. It's falling back still a little bit further as Jason Landry tries to catch back up after his off earlier on. But meanwhile, looking from them to what is further down the order, I can tell you that Matthew Addy has just passed Navarro de Bova, or has he? As they make their way through 10 up into 11, that's Navarro on the inside into 11, and as they make their way under braking, Matthew Addy out brakes them at Change B, driving the SVPMR Ferrari machine, and it is the case that Matthew Addy looking to gain places left, right and centre as they now make their way down towards turn number 1. They go onto their 11th lap, and as they come across that timeline right now, I think Matthew Addy senses that with Matt Evans a bit further back, with also Stefan Gamble Rasmussen a bit further back, this is his opportunity. And also Jochen Siegert, to be fair, a bit further back. And Matthew Addy is right now the highest place of our top 4 in the championship in this race alone, and this is a huge moment for him. If he can pull this off and pull off a potential win, then the championship momentum will swing the Britons' way. We will have to wait and see. Right now, there is a lot on the line. Whilst we do have 4 rounds remaining, including this one, the points really do count now. In terms of every result is critical, because those drop scores do come into effect, and they will shake up the championship round after round. It's about getting the best possible score, not only to get huge points, to improve your existing scores, as we can see Matthew Addy coming through turn at number 7. But meanwhile, behind you can see Jochen Siegert then leading the next pack of drivers here in P19 overall, P5 in the AM class, and he's got 2 primes behind him of Jaco Boschum and Callum Reid Garton. And Callum Reid Garton all over the back of the South African, as we look to the 2 Pro-Am drivers here in the battle for P20 overall, P9 in the Pro-Am class. But what you can see here is Jaco Boschum just not quite on the pace of perhaps his Pro-Am peers, but doing everything he can to try and get this top 10 result as they make their way through the sequence of corners to 9 in 10 and then up into 11. And Boschum's going to have to go defensive here. It looks like Callum Reid Garton's going to go round the outside to inside. Will he be able to get it done? And indeed he does get it done in the end. He simply has the bravery and the beef out. I think Jaco Boschum gave that one away a little bit in terms of backed out. When he could have perhaps stuck his nose in a bit more, he decided, you know what, it's not worth it. There's more of a race than just the opening 17 minutes. So I think that was the right call for Jaco Boschum, just to be patient and look for an opportunity later on, because there's still plenty of opportunities. Zolder, as we have seen already in the space of 70 minutes, is a circuit that takes no prisoners. It takes one curb and it's all over. And right now, as they press on, and I'm hearing that Matt Emmons is into the pits. Emmons, I'm not sure what's happened here. Has he been involved in an incident? Let's take a look back. Well, Matt Evans made his way down. There's a problem with the car. He's had a major off circuit and he's going very slowly into the pits. Let's take a look a bit further back. Well, this was coming into turn number 1 on what was lap number 11 and into the wall, and that is Matt Evans. Well, Matt Evans just not having a good time here at Zolder, and our championship leader in the AM class into the pit, and they're going to have to do a lot of work on the car. As meanwhile, we look back to those live pictures right now, and our race leader, Stephen Fairclough, making his way into what is turn number 2, 1.2 seconds clear of Kenny Heremans. And meanwhile, as these two continue their pursuit of one another and the pursuit of that win, Fairclough, of course, wanting to make it back-to-back wins, Heremans wanting to make make it one apiece. It is the case that Billy Fletcher not closing up at this point in time. In fact, dropping back a little bit in terms of pace. Lost a 10th on that last lap, lost a 10th on the previous lap. We'll have to wait and see what will happen from him. I think it might be the case that right now the Briton is calming the car down and thinking about the longer picture. Perhaps he's going into a bit of a fuel saving mode right now and looking to gain the time through the pit stop. We know Fletcher, a very versatile driver in terms of strategy. We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, speaking of the strategy working out, it would seem, well, the strategy just to stay in the lead and try and break away in the Pro class meant that James Slate starting on pole, of course, with the reverse championship grid order going into this round. It is the case that right now the RP Motorsports rookies drivers doing nicely. Well, he won't be doing nicely if he hits that apex curve at the Kleiner chicane too aggressively like that lap after lap. He can't guarantee consistent results by trying to pop a wheelie in the car or putting it up onto two wheels, but he'll be aware of that, and he'll also not be doing the suspension rods any good either as they make the way through turn number 7. And you can see DD Blaming right now giving that pursuit. He's only 1.3 seconds behind and closing, and we do know them at Change PE drivers, as we heard from Jürgen Nocker in the post-race interview in the sprint. They have been working furiously at this race. They have been working tirelessly to try and find the pace here at Zolder, and it is showing because they are picking up a huge amount of pace as they make the way on through. But meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see, oh, goodness me, it looks like we've got a little bit of elbows out here between the two Belgians, Jeremy De Boven and Jean-Louis Desschans. Desschans on the inside under braking into X, and as they make the way through, it is the case that Jeremy De Boven gives Desschans the room. But both of them right now really pressing one another as we ride on board here with the Delta Motorsport driver as he tries to go back on the offensive into turn 1. They're now onto lap number 14 here. This is the battle for P11 overall, P5 in the prime class, and it means that Matthew Hodges is being allowed to run away with things to a degree as they make the way into the braking zone for turn 2. And you can see De Boven there just experiencing a little bit of initial entry understeer when a bit deep. He brought the car back together, and that's the one thing the Audi can do very well. It's very nimble to recover when it goes wrong. Of course, get it too wrong and that car becomes absolutely a nightmare to try and bring back under control. Whereas conversely, the Porsche, you need to keep it within the limits. As soon as it goes outside those limits, it will snap on you. It's a case that it's two mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars with two very distinct behavioural natures as they make their way through the Kleiner chicane and over the crest once again down towards turn number 7. But Desschans falling back a little bit after having that moment battling with what was Jeremy De Boven as they make their way through turn number 7 now, coming through the second chicane and then through the double right to complete the corner and head up towards 8. No change between these two. But meanwhile, speaking of changes that are coming, I think James Slates is feeling a bit of pressure right now as we look back to the driver in P7. He's the leader of the prime class, but look who's behind him, Didi Blaming, who is gaining arm over fist in terms of lap time. That last lap, Didi Blaming was 1.3 seconds faster, and he's closed it down again here. And I think we could be seeing a change for the prime lead very shortly as they make their way down on towards the timelines. Here they go across onto lap number 15. Will Slates go defensive here into 1? No, he decides against it. He decides to stay on the racing line, as does Blaming. But now as they make their way through turn number 1 and up towards 2, I think the inevitable is coming. There is going to be a move, and how will the RP Motorsports rookie driver defend it? Will he cut to the inside? Will he let it go? Will he look to just try and finish on the podium, or will he go all in and try and invest on the win early on? We will wait and see as they make their way through turn number 4 here. And be fair to Slates, he's driving very well. Nobody can take anything from him, but DD Blaming just seems to be in a different level of pace right now. 1 second a lap faster on average as they make their way through the chicane here, and Slates taking a much smoother run this time through the Kleiner chicane as they come over the crest of the ridge. As they come down through 6, we look a little bit further back, and we look back to what is dirt bouts here in P9 overall. It's P3 in the prime class. The RP Motorsports seniors driver here, he'll be looking out for Matthew Hodges, who goes for the move from very far back. And Hodges, will to be fair, he knew to back out of it when it didn't work, but Hodges trying to find a move, and that's fantastic stuff from Hodges. You can see the CXR Project Black driver wants this badly as they make the way down towards 9. He's going to look to the outside here. Would he go for a cut back? They're side by side on the braking as they come through. Hodges can't find his way, but you can see just behind our Jeremy De Boven's now closing up as they make the way in the long run down towards turn number 11. Into the final chicane they come, and it is the case that right now Dirt Bouts defending. Oh, goodness me! And there's contact between what is Matthew Hodges and also Dirt Bouts as Matthew Hodges into the pit, and it looks as though Dirt Bouts recovering to the circuit. Now, was Matthew Hodges planning to come into the pits? That's the big question. Let's take a look. Riding on board here with Matthew Hodges, Now, if he was going to come in, he'd be all the way over to the right. Now, we're going to see Dirt Bounce coming in, and Matthew Hodges, I think there was contact, and in fact, he did. It looks as though Hodges wanted to go in the pits, and Dirt Bounce, well, that is a very awkward one to deal with, because I think Hodges would argue he made it clear he was coming into the pit, and I think Dirt Bounce would argue he made it very clear he was trying to take the corner, and well, we'll have to wait and see. But Matthew Hodges has got away with that one in terms of damage on the car and losing lap time, but meanwhile Dirt Bounce has fallen from P3 in class all the way down to P7 in class, and now he has got Callum Reid Garton on his 6 trying to find a way on through, and that is very unfortunate. That's one of the horrible things about the pit entry at Zolder. It's right on the racing line into the pits. As they make their way into the pits, I should say, and right on the racing line under braking into turn number 11, and it is a horrible one to negotiate. And those two drivers, they're showing you what happens when it's a case that there's mixed signals as they make their way through turn number 7. The driver's on live screen right now, and you're looking at Dirt Bounce, who's trying to hold off Callum Reid Garton here. Dirt Bounce, of course, will be feeling that he's earned the right to try and hold on to that position. Callum Reid Garton is just, however, going to simply send it up the inside into turn number 9 here and move up a position. But Callum Reid Garton has got a long way to go in this race. He's got a lot of ground still to cover. Can he get himself into the lead of the Pro class come the very end of it? We will have to wait and see. There is a lot of racing still to go. As we see Dirt Bounce jumping into the pits now, we are starting to see our initial pit stops. The pit window normally is around the 20-minute mark is when it opens up. There is no officially prescribed pit window, but it's the case the fuel in these cars will take our drivers up to, on average, about the 40th minute. We have seen some drivers extend the fuel tanks all the way up to the 48th to 50th minute in the past, but right now is the case. You can go for that undercut from the 20-minute point and onwards, as Daniel Holman's also into the pits. As we see the Bright Esports driver is in, we've also got some more drivers coming on in short order. But meanwhile, looking from them to the battling out on circuit, you can see it's Matthew Addy right now leading the AM class, P13 overall leader in AM, and he's got Navarro de Bova behind him right now as they make their way down towards the Kleiner chicane. Now for Matthew Addy, of course, this is critical. He's into the lead of his class, and he knows as they make the way on through the corners right now, he knows that if he picks up this win here, he will gain considerably versus his peers in the AM Championship. It would effectively see him move from where he is currently. We believe it's P3 if I remember correctly. He would move himself right up in there, and I think he could even have an opportunity to get himself into the lead of the AM Class Championship come the end of tonight. We'll have to wait and see, but right now his focus is bringing home this win if he can, as he makes his way through turn number 9, goes a bit deep and almost loses it. And look at Navarro de Bova also following suit, and that's what one of the hardest things is as well, as we see Kurt Van Hoornacker here gaining a lot of momentum through young de Bova's mistake, and as they make their way into turn number 11 right now, it is the case that Van Hoornacker takes the lead of these two Change BE drivers, and I think he's going to have a shot now at trying to get past Matthew Addy or bringing him back so the two of them can get themselves into that battle for the lead. But we'll have to wait and see here as they make the way on through, and Didi Blaming is into the pits. The brown driver has come on in. Now, as they make the way on through turn number 2 at this point, we look to the chat, we can see Katie Eames in the Facebook chat saying, I think most could agree that Zolder should be left off next season's calendar. Well, I think it's a case that it is a very difficult circuit, Zolder. I mean, I absolutely love it personally. I love to drive around it, and I love to see the racing around this circuit, but I think it is one of those circuits which catches a lot of drivers out, and I think there might be many here who would be agreeing with you, Katie, and the fact they may be hoping it doesn't appear in the Season 3 calendar, but more in Season 3 at another point in time. We will be revealing all about that in the near future, I can tell you. But as they make their way on around right now, with 26 minutes complete, almost at the halfway point, the battles are now starting to subside a little bit in terms of the on-track battles. Instead, we are now starting to see what are the battles in the strategy, although I say that Callum Reid Garton here is trying to get a battle on and trying to pass Ben Hicks. And much like what he did with Dirt Bounce, it's going to be the case that he goes on from the inside here versus Ben Hicks, and Ben Hicks has got no argument back. Callum Reid Garton gains another position, now moves up to P4 in class, but remember, we have seen a couple of the prime drivers who were ahead of him come into the pits, so we are waiting on that strategic aspect to show its face. And I think Callum Reid Garton will try to go as long as possible, as I'm hearing that Matthew Addy is into the pits, who's coming very heavily on the brakes. Matthew Addy on in, and well, he was the leader in the AM class, and that means Kurt Van Hoornacker will now go on to lead the AM class. We see Jakob Boschhoff here making his way past the road over the Prime driver, trying to siphon his way on through, as we see there in the Twitch chat, Scorpion on Fire, who we say hello to, saying I personally love Zolder, but with a full grid it really is a challenge to get around in one piece, never mind overtaking. Definitely can agree, Scorpion on Fire, and indeed, well, having experiences in racing with you on a set course of competition, I think we can both talk about our experiences for days. But focusing on the here and now rather than our own personal racing, it is the case our drivers make their way on around. Matthew Addy already X'd in the pits, and where is this going to bring him out? Well, he's a long way to the end of the pit lane, we should point out, and the pit lane extends all the way along and past turn 1, and then the pit exit is running into turn number 2 on the very inside, so it is a very long run to the pits. But you can see Matthew Addy coming on out right now, but as he makes his way on out, it's quite a gap filled at this point in time, as Håkon Gristad is the first of our leaders to come in. Now this is interesting, we wouldn't have expected a pit stop this early on from Håkon Gristad, but he is going to trigger what I think will be the wave of pit stops from our top 6 pro drivers, and indeed our top 6 overall. We'll wait to see how they all react, but it does look as though Håkon Gristad right now kicking the proceedings of the pit stops off as he makes his way on in. But meanwhile, talking about trying to kick off a battle, is Jochen Seeger, who makes his way down towards turn number 11, and as they make their way into the braking zone for turn number 11, you can see Jochen Seeger just plows straight on through here in order to go into the pit. So he's decided, the German, enough's enough. He's going to now make that stop. What about elsewhere out on the circuit? Well, we have Håkon Gristad coming through the pits right now, but a lot of drivers continuing to stay out, interestingly enough, so we are not seeing a mass reaction. It does seem as though a lot of drivers do want to try and go over the halfway distance before they pit, which is understandable, I think, because they'll be worried that effectively in the situation at Zolder, with track position being so critical and overtaking coming at such a premium, they will want to try and outlast their opponents. They'll try to go for the overcut, as it's now known, or it just used to be known as staying out longer than your opponent. That's literally what it's referred to, but it's the case that Deegan Fairclough right now, he will be the last to pit, and what I think will trigger Fairclough pitting, it will be Kenny Heremans. As soon as we see the P2 man of Kenny Heremans come into the pits, you will see Deegan Fairclough come into the pits the next lap to cover him off, because right now Kenny Heremans has got to make the gamble, which is he either outpaces Fairclough on circuit or he has to try and go for the undercut. But with the gap between the leaders being 3 seconds, 3 seconds doesn't sound like a lot of time with regards to the pit stops, because you can have a bad stop which costs you that 3 seconds, but assuming the pit stops are perfect and they're identical pit stops between the two of them, it means that Kenny Heremans has to come out in clear track, and then he's got to essentially cut down that time when Fairclough comes in at the end of the next lap, and that is the difficulty as they make the way on down. But speaking of difficulties and making their way on down, we can see that James Slates has fallen a little bit down the order in the Prime class. He's now down to P9 overall, P4 in class, but still soldiering on here behind what is Callum Reid Garton, who's got past him quite recently, and Jean-Louis Desschans and Jeremy Doe, who made past him earlier on as he makes his way through turn number 1. But the overtaking has subsided for the time being, and to be fair to James Slates, he is keeping that effort up, and he's keeping those laps coming on in as Ronaldo Utrecht is into the pits, the AM driver from what was P3 in the AM class before he pitted. But as our drivers make their way around it right now, is the case that we can see Jakob Boschhoff a little bit further behind the Prime driver here, currently P6 in the Prime class, and the South African just keeping it nice and smooth and keeping those laps coming on in, as he does have Kurt van Hoornacker, the AM driver, ahead of him, and the Road de Boer, the AM driver, behind him right now in that horrible Audi AM sandwich as they make their way down in towards the Kleiner chicane and through. But as they make their way through the sequence of corners right now, you can see all 3 drivers just pressing on here and trying to go a bit longer than most. But meanwhile, a bit further up the road, looking from one Ignium Motorsport driver to another, looking to the Ignium Motorsport Blaze team driver, Ben Hicks. He's hunting down at James Slates and trying to close up as they make their way on through and down into turn number 9. We ride on board with Ben Hicks here as he closes up, under braking. I think it is the case that James Slates might be trying to protect the car a little bit. Perhaps he doesn't feel too comfortable if the tyre wear goes past a certain threshold. But again, nothing to be taken from the RP Motorsports driver, who is putting in a solid effort. Ben Hicks just seems to be gaining that ground very gradually here as we see the Ignium Motorsport driver get a very nice run out of the chicane. To be fair, James Slates got a good initial exit, but then bogged down because he understeered a little bit wide, and you can see he had to lift off the throttle, and that's enabling Ben Hicks to stay right there with him as they now go on to another lap and into turn 1. What for them is the 22nd time of asking, as both drivers understeer a bit wide of apex there, particularly Ben Hicks, who I think felt the wash off of the back of the Ferrari in front of him. He gets a really nice tight turn 2, and that's what you need in order to now start gaining that momentum as he comes through 3 and up into 4. Now if he nail it again into 4 here, he won't be close enough to go for the move into the chicane, but I think he will feel that momentum is coming his way as he does get the good exit, and now they go roaring on down in towards the Kleiner chicane into that heavy braking zone and as they make the way on in at this point in time, it's one of those situations where we can see Hicks just keeping it smooth, keeping it nice and consistent. That's what we love to see, as it is yielding him the ground on his opponent ahead as they make the way into 7. As they come on in at this point, no more pit stops to talk about at this point in time, but one thing I can tell you about, you can see made his pit stop. He was one of the first AMs to pit in terms of the lead group of AM drivers, and the NXTGEN Racing Orange driver has actually made this work out to an extent. He's come out in what is effectively P21, and now with this, he's coming in P4 in class, I should say. He's now got a lot of clear track. He's got 3.2 seconds to Dirt Bounce ahead of him. Dirt Bounce, to be fair, overtook him a little while ago, and I think what that is really the signal is Dirt Bounce getting on with the move, and you can see it letting him go. And what this will now mean for you can see it, he can focus on trying to deliver, as we've had an incident up the road, or halfway, as James Slates and Ben Hicks, we're hearing they've had a little bit of a moment. Have we seen a similar thing to what happened earlier on involving Matthew Hodges and also Dirt Bounce? Let's take a look. Well, if anything's to be believed, I'm putting my money on there was a misinterpretation of who wanted to come into the pits and when. As we see James Slates heavy on the brakes, and yes, Ben Hicks tapping the rear end there, trying to go on in, and it was Matt Evans who had to slam on the anchors as they came on through. And yeah, I think many a driver will be saying that they don't want to be coming back to Zolder anytime soon, based on some of their experiences here today. But as they make their way on through, we see James Slates carrying on right now, whereas Ben Hicks going for that pit stop. But Slates has lost time because of that contact, understandably so, and now he will be looking just to try and recover things as best as he can. As meanwhile behind him is Matt Evans, who is a lap down, the AM driver, our AM championship leader, and having a horrible day at the races is Matt Evans, currently P27 and a lap off as he makes his way on through here. And the BMW M4 driver, I think at this point, just trying to bring the car home and get some points on the board, because he will right now be finishing P8 if the race was to finish as it stands. That would be P8 in the AM class. And it'd be some points. Whether it will cover for one of his drop scores, however, that's a different question entirely. But it's always good to bring the car home and get the points on the board if you can, as he makes his way through turn at number 9. We're 35 minutes into this race. By the time these drivers come to the end of their current lap, they come to the end of lap number 22. And, well, it does look as though we're still waiting for the trigger to be pulled on the final sets of pit stops in terms of our leaders. We see somebody going charging into the pits there, and that's Kurt Van Hoornacker, who absolutely sends his Audi R18, and Navarro de Bova follows him in as well. It looks as though it's a scheduled stop for the pair of them. The Challenge B2 team have worked this one out, and I think they've decided they're going to go together, and as they make their way in right now, it will be a double stop for Challenge B as they make their way on in. But we look from them to a little bit further up the road, and right now we are waiting to see when this man and the guy behind him, this Deegan Fairclough who's at the focus right now, and the man behind him as the camera spins round of Kenny Heremans, when will one of these two pit? And when they do pit, will the other react immediately, or will we see a unique strategy occur here? Well, right now it does seem as though destiny is in the hands of Deegan Fairclough, with Kenny Heremans not quite able to match him for pace, although I say that on that last lap Kenny Heremans was 4.5 tenths faster compared to Deegan Fairclough, but we'll have to wait out as we're hearing that Matt Evans has jumped to the pit after an incident, and let's take a look at what happened. Well, this was only moments ago for the AM driver as he's coming through 4. It looks like he's gone a little bit wide of apex up onto the gravel, and well, the car's just given way on the rear into the wall, and I think that is repair work to the car once again as he has jumped to the pit lane, and well, I think his race may be near to essentially being written off in terms of it has not been his day. But speaking of drivers' days right now, we can see that Van Hoornacker and Navarro de Bova have come out, and look who they've come out behind with the pit stops here. It has not worked out, and Matthew Addy has done the undercut to retake the lead of the AM class. And well, this was very close, and it is that close in fact that our top 3 are separated by only a second between them. But now here's the horrible part, of course. Matthew Addy has clear track in front of him, and he can gun that Ferrari as much as he wants. He can control this pace if he feels he can. Meanwhile, Kurt Van Hoornacker now has to give pursuit, but at the same time with his teammate behind him. Of course, the two teammates won't want to take one another out, but you can imagine they'll both be salivating at the prospect, but the leader is in front of them, and they'll both want a shot at the lead. We'll have to wait and see, of course, how it all plays out between the Challenge drivers and also the SVPMR driver who's leading this, but this is very close. And right now, we have got 23 minutes to the finish line, including the final lap. And it'll mean that these 3, there will be a battle for the AM lead all the way to the finish, as they make their way out of the final corner and head across that timeline again very shortly. And who will be the victor out of these 3 come the end of it, as we ride on board with Navarro de Bova, the rearmost of the 3 here, as he comes through turn number 1 once again. Now, what can you do in this scenario if you are Navarro de Bova? I mean, you're in a bit of a difficult situation, which is you need to stay with the two in front because they start to kick off. You'll want to be in that fight. What Navarro can do, he can try and protect the tyres a little bit, he can try and keep the brakes a little bit cooler, and that will just keep the car in the more optimal operating window. And by doing that, what we mean is he simply lifts off a little bit before the braking zone for a particular corner, or he just alternatively takes it a little bit smoother in terms of it into the braking zone, so he doesn't have to be as hard on the brakes, and that might just help protect the car. He won't want to let it go too far, however, and you can see it's falling back a little bit off the back of Adrian van Hoornacker right now. Now, he might also be doing that because of the dirty air effect of the two cars in front of him, whereby the dirty air, particularly that hot air that comes towards the car, will be causing a bit of extra temperature in those front brakes and those front tyres, and he won't want that to compromise his races. We're hearing that Anthony Beck is into the pit, but it's the case that our top 5 in the Pro class have yet to come into the pit. As we can see, but I say that, ladies and gentlemen, we cut away very briefly because it is Deegan Fairclough who's into the pit, and Kenny Harriman stays out. Now, this is critical. It's the reverse of what we perhaps expected. Fairclough has decided to pull the trigger early. He's already in. Billy Fletcher stays out as well. And, well, all the pros, including Jason Landry, are staying out. So now this could be really risky for Deegan Fairclough, because it's the case the other pros have not seen the window, but Fairclough thinks he's had. And as they make the way on through, we can see Robert Dasunik comes on in, so it's the case that we're not going to see all of our pros coming through minus Fairclough. One more comes on through, but we'll have to wait to see how that pro lead turns out come the end of it. As we can see Jeremy de Bova also into the pits. He'll be coming through on the camera very soon, our leader in the Pro-Am class, and I do believe that will mean that we've still got Jean-Louis Desschans, also Callum Reid Garton and Jakob Boshoff and James States yet to pit in the Pro-Am battle. So this is all starting to erupt in terms of the strategy as they make the way through. Now, where is Deegan Fairclough? He's making his way out the pits. Is he going to come out ahead of the Pro-Ams who are coming on through? He's just about done it, and I think Fairclough with that may have just saved himself, because you can see there's Jean-Louis Desschans who just came through the bottom of your picture. And in doing so right now, as we've got even more of the Pro-Ams in, we've got James Slates and also Hacken shot into the pits. It does mean that right now Deegan Fairclough has to push on this lap and see how Kenny Hermans and Billy Fletcher react as they make the way on through and come roaring on down towards the Kleiner chicane. But right now everything is opening up in terms of strategy, and Kenny Hermans is into the pits, ladies and gentlemen. Here he comes, and now this is critical. They've got to have the perfect stop. Billy Fletcher is also in from the Pro Championship P2 position, and as they make their way into the pits right now, we've got to wait and see as Jason Landry, will he also peel on in? He's a bit further back as the Canadian. I suspect he's going to peel on in. He does indeed. He straight lines his way on in and makes his way through the pit lane chicane and comes on in to the pits right now. And where is Deegan Fairclough? Well, he's making his way through turn number 9. It is going to be very close between these guys as he comes on through. We've still got Hermans and Fletcher in their pit boxes. I look out my commentary box window, I can tell you they're still both in their pit boxes being serviced right now as Fairclough makes his way through the final chicane. And I think Fairclough's going to have this go his way. It's looking good for Fairclough as he comes on through and makes his way across the time by. They're leaving their pit lane right now. They're making their way out. Where are they all going to be as Fairclough makes his way through turn number 1, and it's going to be very close. There's Fairclough, and as they come on through, we look to the blimp camera right now. Well, in this case, the blimp camera is not very useful, ladies and gents, but it's Fairclough who just gets out ahead of Kenny Hermans, who is right behind him. Hermans has cut down that lead by going 1 lap longer by the best part of 2 seconds, but it wasn't enough to get ahead of Fairclough. And I think that right now Fairclough will be absolutely sweating in the fact that that could have gone another way, and if it had, that would have been catastrophic. As they make the way through the Kleiner chicane, you can see both drivers really attacking the chicane, trying to get the lap time. Now, as they make the way down to 6 and 7, and will we see Hermans change tact here? Will we see him go all in, or will he just wait? Given that there are 18.5 minutes of this race remaining, well, I think with Hermans, you've got to go and you've got to start getting that pressure, because if Fairclough's allowed to get into the rhythm and break away, particularly given the fact that he's got the tyres which are up to temperature already compared to Hermans, we'll need to get those tyres back up to temperature over the course of this lap. It's only going to be advantage Fairclough, but we'll wait and see as they make their way through. Meanwhile, Billy Fletcher currently in P4 overall. He's got Callum Reid Garton, his teammate, who stayed out 1 more lap compared to everyone else. He's the only driver yet to pit, Callum Reid Garton, and I would presume he's going into the pits this time around. No, he's staying out again, is Callum Reid Garton. This is absolutely monstrous in terms of a stint. And for Callum Reid Garton, well, if he goes 1 more lap here, surely he's not going to do the mother of all overcuts and get himself to the head of the Pro-Am pack by just simply staying out this long. I mean, in terms of where the P2 driver is in the prime, that's DDD Vlaming. He's making his way right now up to the what is turn number 9 here. I think DDD Vlaming should be ahead when the pit stop window has finished in terms of when Callum Reid Garton has come on in. We'll have to wait and see, as he's got Jeremy DeBova all over his back, has DDD Vlaming, but these two will know they're both teammates. They'll be on radio, and the team principal will be on the radio as well, saying to them both, you cannot afford to fight right now. We'll let you fight at the end of the race, but not now, because you are critical to Callum Reid Garton in terms of Garton could jump you both in the pits as they make their way across the timing line here. We've still got parts of this to unfold, and speaking of things unfolding, we'll look at this, ladies and gentlemen. We did see it in the sprint race. We're going to see it again here in the feature race, I feel. Kenny Hermans is now only 0.8 of a second over the back of Fairclough and closing as they make their way through turn number 7 up into 8. I think it is the case the RP Motorsports Experts driver here wants to come back. He wants this win. He does not want to finish P2 twice behind the Briton ahead of him as they make their way out of turn number 9. And as they come on through here, Jakob Boschhoff coming into the pits quite recently, and we see there in the chat, Matt Evans saying in the Facebook chat tonight has been his worst night so far, and well, he's in the pits right now. They're not bringing the car again as Callum Reid Garton charges into the pits there. He's gone the longest of anybody on the stint, and as a result now Callum Reid Garton will be in the hands of whether he's done enough to jump P2 in the Pro-Am class, man. DDD Vlaming, who right now is making his way through turn number 7. Callum Reid Garton is in the pit lane. As I look out my commentary box window, he's just making his way up towards his pit box. Meanwhile, DDD Vlaming just making his way into turn number 9. And as he comes through the right-hander, well, Matt Evans has got 5 more minutes to repairs. That's how much damage has been done to the car, he clarifies in the Facebook chat. But we focus here and now on the Belgian, who is trying to make sure that Callum Reid Garton doesn't jump in. But Reid Garton's left his pit box. He's got a long way to go down the pit lane, but where is DDD Vlaming? That's the question. He's only making his way onto the start finish straight now. He's gone across the timeline. Callum Reid Garton has crossed the pit limiter line. Vlaming making his way into turn 1. I think Callum Reid Garton's done this, and if he has, it is huge. We'll wait and see as they make their way through the corner. Where is Callum Reid Garton in all this? He's making his way on out, and Callum Reid Garton has jumped the entirety of the top 3 of the Pro-Am class by simply going longer than everybody else and fuel saving all the way. And well, if I was in DDD Vlaming's position right now, you must be absolutely gobsmacked to see that Callum Reid Garton has jumped that much ground by going that long, because they've literally worked it to perfection at Challenge B1. But it's the case the Luxim 24 of MB Esports driver has simply stepped it up a gear in the most unnatural way possible, which is he's gone incredibly long. As we see Jeremy DeBova here swapping places with DDD Vlaming, who got it wrong there on the exit of what was the kind of chicane, and I think Jeremy DeBova is going to try and hunt down Callum Reid Garton over the next couple of laps and just simply try to pull him in, because right now Garton's got to get those tyres a bit up to temperature once again after coming off the race pace for a brief while in the pits. Of course, most drivers only taking on fuel, nobody really changing tyres, because the tyre degradation limits are not that high around Zolder. But one thing I can tell you that right now is Jeremy DeBova, he can't close down Callum Reid Garton on this lap or the next one. I think Reid Garton is going to run this one to the distance, as meanwhile in the battle for what is the lead of the AM class, well, Kurt Van Hoenacker here has got a bit of an issue. He's got James Slates between himself and his target man Matthew Addy, and of course Van Hoenacker P2 in class, P15 overall, as he makes the move there around the outside. James Slates, we can see it's Navarro DeBova coming around as well. I think James Slates there recognising not in the same class and letting them go, and very wise to do so here, because I think it was only going to end up one way, and that would have been Van Hoenacker and Navarro DeBova trying to force their way on through, as Navarro gets it very wrong under braking there, locks the brakes up and has to swerve the car to avoid clipping the rear of his teammate, and he won't want to do that too often, because that is going to take a lot of life out of the car, and they've still got 14 minutes of racing to go. This race is by far from over yet, and as they make their way on through, you can see as they come through turn number 1, it is the case that right now Navarro DeBova has lost some ground to his teammate, but Van Hoenacker has lost a huge amount of ground to the leader of the AM class, and you're looking at him now as he makes his way past the tents on the camera angle, and that is Matthew Addy, the Briton, really doing a stellar job here, the SVPMR driver, and showing why he is now a championship contender in the AM class, because he's just putting it together. He's still got time to go. Anything can happen, of course, whilst we do still have 13 minutes of racing plus the final lap, but it does look as though Matthew Addy has got this one under control as he continues to press on here in the Ferrari 488, but we'll wait and see, of course, whether it is entirely in his control or whether there is a bit of last minute drama as he makes his way on through the corners, and as they come all the way through turn 7 and up towards 9, it is the case that Matthew Addy doing everything right, it would seem. But speaking of a man doing everything right, I think Deegan Fairclough would like to say he's done that as well in this race, and right now looking looking very strong to bring home 2 out of 2 wins tonight here at Zolder in the Pro Class. But there's one man who will have everything to say about that, and that is Kenny Heremans as we ride on board with the Lamborghini Huracan driver. Now, as they make their way through the sequence of corners coming up towards the end of the lap here through turn number 9 right now, what can Heremans do? He's not really able to close up enough, and the two drivers matching one another for lap time, lap after lap. That last lap, both of them are 28.32, literally both are right on the dot in terms of lap time. They're inseparable. But now look at this, Fairclough has got a little bit of traffic as we've got you can see that they're turned across the circuit, and what on earth has happened to the German who's all the way down? Let's take a look. Well, this was only moments ago, and you can see at the time was running P6 in the AM class, P23 overall. Now, as he comes out of the final corner, it looks like he's going to run wide onto the grass, and he just simply loses the car into the wall there. And to be fair, well, I think it was the case that the car was going, and well, he's just had to try and turn it in. It has not recovered, and that is very unfortunate for the German driver. And it really, I hate to say this, ladies and gentlemen, it looks as though everybody, minus Matthew Addy in that championship hunt in the AM class, has dropped it somewhere on circuit, and Addy just keeping it together. As we look back to our live pictures right now, we see Kenny Heremans still chasing Dean Fairclough, and Fairclough flashed his lights left, right and centre to tell everybody up the road. Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen being the next man up the road. P21 overall, P5 in the AM class, and about to be lapped. Well, I think he's trying to get the message through to everyone. Look, I've got to be let through. Get the blue flags out. Get out of the way. I've got somebody on my 6. Of course, they won't know that. They'll just know that they've got a driver coming up behind them, and it's while the leaders and the blue flags will eventually wave on both the track side and also on what is their electronic screens in the car. But you can see right now, Gamborg Rasmussen just simply being caught up very quickly here indeed as they make the way down towards turn number 11. And as they make the way on him right now, I'm sure he will move aside very shortly, the Dane. But we look from him to Ben Hicks, who in P12 overall, P6 in the Pro class, is trying to hunt down Daniel Holmer in the hunt for what is P5, a top 5 finish in the Primes here at Zolder, as they make their way through turn number 4. 10.5 minutes remaining right now, and Ben Hicks in terms of lap time, that last lap matching Daniel Holmer. These two exchanging lap times as if it's going out of style as well, as they make their way down into the Kleiner chicane here. And as they make their way on through, can we tell any body language differences between the two cars and how the drivers are feeling? Well, I think Holmer there having a very poor run through the chicane. I think he's struggling for that front end rotation compared to what is in Ben Hicks's case. He's got that rotation, mid-engine rear wheel drive in the Ferrari, and the Swede right now I think just trying to bring this car home and will need to go defensive soon, because it does look as though Ben Hicks inching closer and closer as we ride on board the gearbox of the Bright Esports driver, making his way down into turn number 9. Now, as they come on through at the right-hander here of turn 9 and head down towards turn number 11, where can Ben Hicks go for the offensive move? Well, I think it will be in the opening half of lap, turns 1 through to 4, where he will have that huge opportunity to go for it as they make their way through turn number 11. As they swing on through the chicane, you can see how Holmer actually having the better exit there out of turn number 11, out through the Jackie chicane, heading across that timeline, just able to get on the power more smoothly compared to Ben Hicks. So it may not be all smooth sailing for the Ignium Motorsport driver as they make their way through turn number 1, and as they come through 1 and now heading up into 2, Ignium Motorsport Blaze, I should clarify, it is the case that right now Ben Hicks trying to close up, and you can see, look at the language again, where it just looks like Hicks able to take those tighter lines through turn 2 and 3, and he's able to carry a bit more speed as a result, whereas Holmer's battling against the understeer on the front end of the BMW M4, and it's costing him some time. But now as they go onto the more linear sections of the circuit, where it's less about medium speed apex rotation and more about heavy braking and getting back on the gas as soon as possible, this is where Holmer can use the BMW M4 to his advantage as they make the way over the hill. But again, Ben Hicks closing up very rapidly there as they now make the way down into the second of the chicanes, and you can see as they come into 7, it's the case that Holmer closed up very rapidly. But speaking of closing up and going for a close-up move, it's Kenny Heremans. He's closed up to the back of Deegan Fairclough. On that last lap, he was 0.2 of a second faster compared to Fairclough. They are coming together, and both drivers now started to risk running high on the apexes of the Kleiner chicane. They know that whilst it may be a small chicane, if you can cut it enough, you'll gain a lot of time. It may be one small step for the car, but it's one giant leap for your lap time, as the great racing driver Neil Armstrong once said, as they make their way through turn number 7 and head down towards turn number 9 as they come roaring on through. It is one of those situations right now as they come under that braking zone. It's one of those moments where Kenny Harrams, I think, now needs to start analysing. He needs to play back in his mind what he saw from Fairclough in race number 1 in the sprint race, and see here Fairclough immediately looking at going defensive, trying to break a little bit of toe as well down into turn number 11. Already the gloves are going to come off. It's going to be 8 minutes, and these two are going to be locked in this engrossed battle as they make their way across. You can see Fairclough once again pulls over to the inside immediately. He doesn't want to give any slipstream to Harrimans at all. He doesn't want to give him any advantage on the straights. He wants Harrimans. If he wants it, he's got to follow him. But Harriman's deciding, you know what, I'm not going to follow you around on circuit. I'm not going to try and generate extra temperature in the sidewall of the tyre or throw the car around. Harriman's is going to do it the hard way, which is he's just simply going to follow that racing line and try and stay with Fairclough as he does so. But as they make the way on through now through turn number 4, will we see a close up? No, it's the case. It's half a second and staying as is for now as they make their way down into the heavy braking zone of turn 5. Now, as they make their way on down and through the chicane here, I can tell you that as they make their way over the crest of the ridge, it is the case that elsewhere in the battles, well, in the Pro-Am battle, the Pro-Am battle, I should say, if I can stop mincing my words, it is the case that Callum Reid Garton has got an advantage of 3 seconds over Jeremy De Bover and is not being caught. And in the AM lead battle, Matthew Addy right now, currently P13 overall, is 2.2 seconds ahead of Kurt Van Hoenacker and is looking quite comfortable. So this closest battle you are seeing on screen right now and coming together. We have got some close battles elsewhere out of the circuit, which we will very briefly take a look at, and that is here Hackenschott battling with James States, also Lucas Romano. This is the battle in the Pro-Am class for what is P7, being held by James States right now, ahead of Hackenschott and Lucas Romano as they make their way onto lap number 36. They come through the left-hander at turn 1 once again and flowing through. You can see that the RP Motorsports rookie driver doing everything right now to hold on to this position, but we'll have to wait and see whether that is going to be the case come the end of this, as right now we look to Lucas Romano, the Ferrari driver at the back of this pack, and from his perspective it's one of those situations whereby I think in his mind he'll be looking for the two in front of him to battle, make moves from one another and cost one other time. But I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we have to cut away from this because Kenny Harrimans is into the lead. He's got himself ahead of Deegan Fairclough, and as they make the way through 4, will we see a comeback down into turn number 5? We'll wait as they make the way on down, but it looks like Harrimans right now feels comfortable here. He doesn't go defensive, he just brakes normally, and Fairclough watches on. How did it happen? That's the big question. Well, let's take a look. Well, this was moments ago as they came through 1. Look at Fairclough going very deep into the corner, and he lost a lot of speed, and Harrimans immediately saw the opportunity. But to be fair, you'll notice as well, Fairclough did not defend it. He knew it was coming, and now Fairclough is going to have to go after it. It's advantage Harrimans, but for how long? As now they've got 5 minutes to go, and as they make the way through, that equates to approximately 4 laps, including this one, as they make the way down through turn number 9. And it is the case that right now we can see Kenny Harrimans under a lot of pressure, but can he break away? That's the big question. If he can get that gap up to 9/10 of a second, it's effectively the equivalent then that Deegan Fairclough has got to have a huge pace advantage, and perhaps that one little mistake from Fairclough is a sign that the tyres on the Audi have started to go as they make their way down towards turn 1. We know that the tyres are sensitive on the Audi. It's the same with Lamborghini. These mid-engine rear-wheel drive beasts powered by that V10 5.2 litre naturally aspirated engine, they're very fast in a straight line, they're very manoeuvrable through the corners, but they put a lot of expectation on their tyre compounds. And as they make their way through turn number 2, we can see that's James Slates off circuit there, and as a result Hackenschott and Lucas Romano have passed him. But meanwhile, looking at this battle for the lead, which Jordan White in the Facebook chat says this is lit, and indeed it is right now. It's lit up, the sparks are flying. It is the case that we can see Deegan Fairclough not coming back straight away, and Billy Fletcher just behind. Let's not count out the Audi driver here, the Luxem 24 of MV Esports driver, who was looking at an opportunity to try and close up to the 2 leaders, but he hasn't quite got the pace of that. But what he does have is a special set of skills which is enabling him to stay within 3 seconds of the 2 drivers in front. And as they make their way down into turn number 7 right now, it is the case that Billy Fletcher just waited, I think, and we'll be grateful for a podium. He definitely will, given how everything has played out in the sprint race, but he will just be watching and waiting for an instant to occur between the top 2 as they make their way now down towards turn number 9. But you can see Kenny Harrimans here opening up that gap, as I think Deegan Fairclough has made a mistake. I think he's gone very wide out of a corner. Something has gone wrong, but Fairclough has lost a huge amount of time. He's lost over what is 7/10 of a second on what was the run out of turn 7 up through 8 and to 9. And I think this could be it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that could be the wishbone breaking. And now as they make the way across that timeline, Kenny Heremans just pulling off into the distance, but we'll wait and see whether that is going to be the story. As meanwhile, we take a brief look back at what happened to James States only moments ago. Well, this was in the battle versus James States and Hakan Shot. Now, it's the case that Hakan, well, James States went deep there, and Hakan Shot just came on through, and Lucas Romano did the same as well. And James States having an off at turn 2 on the next lap by his own mistake by the looks of things. But that's how Romano and also Shot gained the position. But we look back to our live timing screens right now, and you can see it is the case with 2 laps to go, including the one we're currently witnessing. Deegan Fairclough has fallen away from Kenny Heremans. Oh, goodness me, he's got it wrong over the Kleiner chicane, and it just takes one mistake, and it's all fallen to pieces in the hunt for what was P2. Now, as he gets himself back up to speed here, you can see how Fairclough letting the drivers on through. Now, Hackle Gustad is nowhere near close enough to capitalise. That's how fast the top 3 have been running, but what it does mean is that Kenny Heremans will now have a 3.2 second advantage over new second place man Billy Fletcher, who makes his way under braking into turn number 9, and Deegan Fairclough just getting it wrong there on the bounce, and that has cost him dramatically. And let's take a look back at how that happened. Riding on board here, I think we're going to see he goes a little bit deep. In fact, he hit the first curb way too high, and that just unsettled the car and put it into the wall. And well, my goodness, what a dramatic end to the race. It's not the way we would have wanted it to happen, as meanwhile Hakan Shot exchanging places here with Lucas Romano. In fact, Romano coming on through up the inside, we just briefly saw that, and Romano with a nice little pass there to get himself up into P7 in the Pro class, P16 overall. Here's the case, the RP Motorsports Juniors driver having a happy battle with what is the Bright Esports driver behind as they make the way on through. And as they come through turn number 4 right now, both drivers just pushing on all the way to the finish as they come charging down towards the chicane. And you can see Kenny Heremans here flashing his lights. He is on the final lap. We believe he's on the final lap. It's going to be very close to whether he gets another lap on in right now, as they've only got a minute to go. But Heremans right now will be thinking to himself, I've done everything right. He's flashing his lights because he's got a whole pack of what is Pro-Am and Am drivers ahead of him, who he wants to move out of the way as soon as possible as they make the way on through the corners and head through turn number 7 and up towards 8. We'll wait and see, however, whether that does materialise in any problems, as we're hearing that Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen has had a huge moment here in the run down turn 6. What's happened to him? This was only moments ago, and that's Deegan Fairclough behind him flashing his lights, and Fairclough, look, I'm not sure there was contact, or Rasmussen just got it wrong. Goodness me, and Rasmussen out the way just in time. But right now we look back to our leaders, and it is Billy Fletcher who's gained. There is going to be one more lap. They will do a 41st tour of this circuit, and Kenny Heremans is holding on to that lead as he goes across the timeline, but Billy Fletcher is not gaining enough. That last lap, Fletcher did take almost 4 tenths out of Heremans, but it's not going to be enough unless Heremans has the mother of all disaster laps, as on that lap they were both equal. Fletcher only gained roughly 600ths of a second. It is Heremans' to lose, but where is Heremans right now? He's making his way through turn number 2 and 3. He's had a bit of traffic to contend with. It has cost him some time, and as he makes his way through turn number 4 right now, he's got a bit more traffic up the road, and he will not want that to hold him up at all. Meanwhile, elsewhere, James States has been overtaken by Matthew Hodges in the hunt for P10 in the Pro-Am class, and we can see now it looks as though it's Gus Franken who's a lap down. The Am driver trying to unlap himself versus James States, but will he be able to do so or not? I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to do so, but we will wait and see as they come rip-roaring on down towards the chicane, the Kleiner chicane once more, and they make their way through on under braking. And well, it is the situation right now where most of the battles have been settled, but meanwhile one driver who won't be settled until he gets that finish line, it is the RP Motorsports expert driver Kenny Heremans, who, having started on the front row alongside Deegan Fairclough in the feature race, and after finishing just behind him in the sprint, he would have been hoping that it could go his way. He would have had the strategy lined up. It didn't work out when he made the pit stop. It was the case he still came out behind, but in the end it was a move into turn number 2. It was consistency that took him through to the end, and it is Kenny Heremans who takes the win in the feature race for the Pro class and overall ahead of Billy Fletcher in P2. A great recovery by Billy Fletcher in race number 2, and then it'll be Deegan Fairclough who comes home on the bottom step of the podium with a one mistake being between him and the lead and being between him and second place. Hakelgestad will come on through to take P4 when all is said and done. Hakelgestad with a bit of a quiet race in the background, but still the McLaren driver bringing home another great result for Ignium Motorsport, and it is Jason Landry who making it a consistent fashion of form in the feature races with another top 5 finish. Robert Asunik will come on through in P6 when all is said and done in the Team Racing Netherlands machine. He comes across the timing line here very shortly to take that P6, and then it is Callum Reid Garton just behind who takes P7 overall, and with a fantastic strategic gamble brings home the win in the Prime class just ahead of Jeremy DeBova, and it is Didi Verlaming who comes home P9, P3 on the podium for the Primes ahead of Jean-Louis Desschans who finishes P4 in the Prime class, finishing our top 10 overall. Daniel Holmer in the end will make it a P5 within the Prime class. A good drive from Daniel Holmer, the Bright Esports driver, again showing that he has got the potential to deliver those good results as he comes on down across that timeline. And then in what is the AM class, it is Matthew Addy who crosses the line, the winner in the feature, and he will know now that the game is on for that championship lead. It has all come together. Kurt Van Hoornacker finishes just ahead of Navarro de Bova to complete the podium in the AM class, and it is Ben Hicks, P15, and Hackenschott who completes our finishing order on the lead lap in P16 overall, P7 within the class. But what a brilliant race, ladies and gentlemen, and well, it has been a completely topsy-turvy race in terms of expectations versus what's happened in the end. And well, in the AM class, the SVPMR driver Matthew Addy just being one step ahead, one gear higher than everybody else around him, and particularly against his championship rivals of Stefan Gambour, Rasmussen, and Matt Emmons, and also Jochen Seeger, who all dropped huge points today. The Briton will be very pleased with this. As we see there, we have got all of the McChange BE cars here forming up for a little bit of a photo opportunity, and they'll be very pleased with their results today. It wasn't a podium in the end it wasn't a win in the end for Kurt Van Hoornacker and Navarro de Bova in what was the feature race, but they'll be pleased with what was the finish on the podium for the pair of them, and great teamwork, as I think is the case that Navarro de Bova has run out of fuel, and well, his dad is going to push him all the way round to the finish line once again. I take him around into the pits, which you love to see, as well. There's been a little bit of a moment there, and that's how light they run these cars. They run them literally to the ragged edge on fuel, as meanwhile it is the case that Callum Reid Garton with that surprise takeover of the lead, and meanwhile in the Pro class, Kenny Hermans with a phenomenal drive, and nothing to take away from Billy Fletcher or Deegan Fairclough, but Kenny Hermans in the end just able to keep himself in it when everybody else seemed to drop it at some point. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in approximately 3 to 4 minutes for our post-race interviews with our winners of the feature race. They'll be coming up fast and you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our post-race interviews with our winners of the feature race, and we're going to start off with our Pro-Am winner of Callum Reid Garton. And, well, the one thing I want to know is how did he calculate that strategy, because that was an absolutely phenomenal strategy. Let's hear from our winner and indeed our championship leader, and I think if he carries this on by the end of round number 10, he will be our overall championship winner in the Pro-Am class. Let's hear from him. Hello, Callum, can you hear me?
I can, mate.
Callum, firstly, how? Just congratulations on the win, but that strategy, that was absolutely incredible with a massive overcut on the rest of the field. How does it feel to have taken the win with such an overcut?
Don't know, mate. It is what it is, isn't it?
Oh, goodness me. But, well, how does it feel to have taken the win in the feature race at Zolder as well? Because you had an absolutely, well, a nightmarish sprint not to talk about, and now to turn it all around and be right at the front.
Yeah, it was a good race up until lap 2 or 3. So yeah, I had to go long, very, very long. So, but yeah, overall it was a decent race. Happy with the victory.
Indeed, it looked as though it was a very solid performance for yourself, but by the sounds of it, you had to change the strategy. It didn't work out at the start because we did see you go off into, I think it was the gravel trap at turn 4 and have to bring the car back on. So how did you change the strategy to make it work?
Just lift and coast, mate. Just brake late, lift and brake later. That's literally it. Just find a rhythm on the track and just try find where you don't really need to necessarily waste fuel, pretty much.
Well, it definitely worked out very well for yourself, and well, all the way through, your pace was very strong, and you were closing more and more towards the top 5, and you got into the top 5 of the Pro-Ams. And I do have to ask, when you started thinking about coming into the pits, or at least you saw others come in, was it in your mind just to keep going and going and going until literally that fuel tank said we can't go any further?
Yeah, I mean, when Jeremy and Desschans pitted, I had about, if I was to fuel save more, I easily had like an extra 5 laps in the tank. But I just thought, gun it, get them in, like go faster whilst they're in pit lane. And obviously that paid off. I think I came out of like a 1.2 second lead. And then I had to manage my fuel throughout the race as well, throughout the end in the second stint, because I was literally I finished the race with 0.13 liters of fuel. But yeah, like it was a good race. Like strategy wise, it was mint, wicked, loved it, and it secured the win. So yeah, happy.
Well, indeed, I think it's going to be one that goes down in the books of this series of how well the overcut can work when you absolutely nail it spot on. And, well, what a fantastic drive. But now we look ahead to Monza in a week's time, round number 10, and, well, with the championship swinging ever more your way, and I think you could wrap it up at Monza effectively. How are you feeling going into the Italian Cathedral Speed?
Yeah, great. I think the BMW is going to be quite good there, so rides curbs well. So I'm looking forward to it, to be fair. Should be a good race.
Oh, well, we look forward to seeing how you get on at Monza. But until then, congratulations on the win once again in the feature. And thank you for joining us in the interview room.
Cheers, Paul.
Take care. Well, with that, we've heard from Callum Reid Garton. Let's bring in our winner in the Pro class, and that is Kenny Heremans. And hear his thoughts of that long battle with Deegan Fairclough. We'll just bring him in now for you, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a brief moment. Hello, Kenny. Can you hear me?
Hi, Paul. Yes, clearly.
Kenny, in what was an absolutely back and forth battle between yourself and Deegan Fairclough, you were the winner in the end. Congratulations on the win in the Pro class in the feature. How does it feel to be on the top step of the podium?
First time this season. I didn't expect that before tonight's races. I'm quite happy because it's on a Belgian ground. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this, with the performance, and also actually in general the quite clean races, I guess.
Well, it was a very, very well measured race from yourself. And just take us through it. We saw at the start, you started side by side with Deegan Fairclough, P2. And the two of you, of course, no love lost between the two of you from battling in the sprint race, although brilliant battle in between you two. But it did look as though you were quite restrained in terms of going after Deegan Fairclough, as though you weren't too worried about going after him at the start race. What was going through your mind in terms of the strategy?
Just because it's a long race, just to not take any risks. I saw in the sprint race, Deegan was taking more risk than I did, especially in the last lap of the sprint race in turn 1. So I didn't want to take any more risk for the feature race and just wait my moment. And I was hoping for him to make a mistake, but actually he had a really profound performance, a really good one. In the first chicane, I was a little bit faster, but in the Villeneuve, he was always a little bit faster. In the end, I think we had the same pace overall. But I'm just happy I could win the race.
Oh, indeed. And well, I can see your point there with regards to that risk versus reward factor in terms of taking less risk than your opponent. But when the pit stops occurred, we saw, interestingly enough, it was Fairclough who decided to pit first rather than yourself. Did that catch you by surprise at all? Because normally it's the pursuer who tries to make the undercut.
Actually, in these terms, I don't have the experience yet to make the undercut or just in regarding the pit stop strategy. I just went to go when I could do till the last lap, and then I went as fast as possible inside the pit lane. I mean, if I have to be honest, I was more occupied with Billy Fletcher, because I know his pit stop. He always wins some time in the pit stop street, but I didn't really expect Deegan. We were coming together in the first corner over there. And when I saw it, I knew he was there, but again, I didn't want to take any risk, and it was easy for me to follow than to take the lead in that thing of the race.
Indeed, and we did see on the closing laps, it was one mistake from Deegan Fairclough which enables you to get past him into turn 2. Just take us through that, because you were coming into the corner, both of you, quite rapidly, but it looked as though Fairclough just went a little bit deep and just couldn't quite get the car to get back under momentum, but you, meanwhile, kept it together very nicely.
Yeah, I didn't know the exact reason of that. I thought he was having some sort of a penalty or something, but I just took the inside. I didn't leave any moment to stick behind him. And from that moment on, I tried to win some time and to take a gap, even if I know it wasn't going to be easy because we had the same pace. But overall, I just tried to remain calm over the total race, and it seemed to work out today. I'm quite happy and less frustrating than some of the last races.
Oh, indeed. And well, with that, we now look ahead to the race at Monza in a week's time. We head to the Italian citadel of speed. How are you feeling for the high-speed circuit?
Yeah, I know the track quite well. Not as good as Zolder maybe, but okay, it's not a circuit with that many corners. It's we'll just have we'll see next week and just have a lot of fun with the remaining guys.
Well, we look forward to seeing you take to the Italian circuit in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview room. And most importantly, congratulations once again on a very well-deserved win in the Pro Class in the feature.
Thanks a lot, Paul, and hope to hear you next week again.
Look forward to it. Take care, my friend.
All right, thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Here and there from Kenny Heremans, who put in a stellar performance and were really pleased with that. And I think you can hear that sense of relief coming off of him. And the one thing to note all the way through, he talked about Deegan Fairclough taking more risk in the sprint over the chicane, the Kleiner chicane in particular. And really, I think that was the difference between the two of them. Fairclough had the faster pace lap by lap by taking the risk. But in return, obviously, the risk profile meant that he was prone to losing some time, whereas Heremans seemed to evolve more into the laps as we went deep. And it's interested to see how in the end it was the driver who was a little bit more conservative earlier on who came on through, but brilliant between the two of them. They were inseparable, and I do hope we see more sparks fly at Monza between them, because they are definitely two huge contenders for more podium, if not wins, in the remaining rounds. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come on to our AM winner, and that is Matthew Addy. Let's get him in here and hear his thoughts on what I think could be a pivotal championship deciding win today. Hello, Matthew. Can you hear me?
Hi, Paul. Yes, I can.
Matthew, congratulations on what looked to be a very tough and hard-earned win in the AM class in the feature race there. How does it feel to be on the top step of the podium?
Really unexpected, to be honest. It was just damage limitation in that, and I pitted early, came out in front, and couldn't believe it, to be honest.
So just with regards to that, can't believe you came out in front ahead of the two McChange BE drivers of Kurt Van Hoenacker and Navarro de Bova. What was the strategy going into this race? Because keeping in mind, right now, you're well in the hunt for the championship lead in the AM class, and having seen how the sprint went, where it seemed as though anybody within the top four of the AM championship, apart from yourself, dropped quite major results, it looked as though it was on your terms tonight to get even huge points on the board.
It was, yeah, I couldn't believe it, to be honest. Kurt and Navarro were the ones to beat, I think, and they were quicker than me. I managed to luck out with traffic at the end there to get a bit of a gap on them. In terms of strategy, I went into this thinking that it's going to be done on pits. It's a very hard track to overtake on the track, so you knew it was going to be done on pits. I managed to pit early and just kind of gain a gap on them, really, without being stuck behind them for too long and losing too much time.
Indeed, we did see time and time again how traffic influenced the pit stops and whatnot. And with regards to your pit stop in particular, it seemed to work out very nice indeed. Was there a particular sort of lap that you'd set as your target, or were you looking for a particular window? Just what was the thought process in terms of what told you it is the time to come in?
It was just based on the amount of time that I was going to lose stuck behind them. I could tell I was quicker than them in the middle part of the race. So that was the decider, really, when I saw the times tumbling from myself, and the people behind me as well were gaining on me. So that's another indication that it's time to get in and get some fresh air. Really, you just want an open track in front of you with fresh fuel, and get the gap again.
Indeed, and then when you came out of the pitch, just take us through what was going through your mind, whether it was a verbal reaction or just a mental sort of screaming in your mind when you came out in front, literally just a nose ahead of both Van Hoenacker and Navarro de Bova.
I was actually on the mic to Matt Eminens, and he told me, and I couldn't believe it. And if we actually go back to the replay on that, I nearly binned it off on the first corner, trying to decide what was going on. So yeah, it was close. I nearly gave it all up in that one first corner, but managed to recoup and get out in front, thankfully.
Oh, indeed. It did look brilliant. And whilst Van Hoenacker and de Bova both pushed very hard to catch up with you, and we did see de Bova actually yield his position to Van Hoenacker after a mistake at the Kleiner chicane in pursuing you, it just seemed as though you had enough pace to just creep that gap off into the distance. How did it feel as the laps and the time started to tick down and that win got closer and closer?
Yeah, there was a fastest lap thought in the back of my head, but I think it was better to settle for the points that I was getting. That those two, the gap was closing and then opening, closing, and it was difficult to manage it without throwing it off completely. It's a difficult track, especially when your tyres are well worn.
Oh, indeed. And now, looking ahead to Monza in a week's time, going into that round, I've done a little bit of rough math. Tonight's results put you right up there in the hunt for that championship lead. I think it might actually put you P2, if not P1 now in the AM class. How are you feeling heading to the Italian Cathedral of Speed?
To be honest, it's my last opportunity to get good points, because the final two races I'm not good on those tracks, especially Bathurst. So Monza's great track, everyone knows it. It's pretty easy, to be honest. So the Ferrari's good on its speed, apart from sixth gear, doesn't seem to do much. But yeah, it should be a really good race for everyone, I think.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on at Monza in a week's time. But until then, congratulations once again on a brilliant drive. And thank you for joining us in the interview room.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Have a good evening.
And you.
So hearing there from Matthew Addy, I think seeming very pleased with his performance, but also surprised with the way the strategy worked out. He just timed everything to perfection, and we did see him come in. He was the first to pull the trigger on the pit stops in the AM class, and as he was saying there, what was the indicator for him was that he was getting closer and closer to Van Hoyenacker and de Boven. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. And because he was getting closer and the drivers behind him were also closing up, he decided to take himself out of the equation and try and get himself that clear air and fresh fuel. And that's exactly what he was able to achieve. And that's what gave him the undercut in the end. Whereas Van Hoyenacker and de Boven, not to their fault, they went longer. They decided to play the longer strategy and it almost worked out. But you could see when Addy came out, he had that track position, despite almost spinning it in his own words, the turn number 1, it was the case that he was able to run that race away, because really once he got ahead he was unstoppable. And I think right now Matthew Addy, whilst he says that he is really, Monza is the last opportunity he has for the huge points because it is a track that suits him and a track he knows well compared to the last two, we'll have to wait and see. I think he's been a dark horse all along and he is really starting to come into the limelight. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. That is all we've got time for today. And if you want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, why not check us out at our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, our Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a huge thank you to our partners, without whom it would not be possible to bring you this high quality racing action entertainment, and that is Apex Racing Academy, apexracingac.com. But as we mentioned in the interviews, next time we head to Monza, the Italian circuit known for one thing: high speed and low drag, low downforce and a lot of slipstream. And we will be there on Wednesday, the 26th of January 2022, to bring you all of the action from the Apex Racing Academy lobby. And we'll be right on board with Jean-Louis Desschans, who will be providing us with a reference lap, a tour of the circuit in the Porsche 911 RSR GT3 as he makes his way around this circuit and shows us what it means to run in low downforce in the German machinery. This track, it's all about being the toe and making it right in terms of those braking points, and also knowing when to go on the offensive, when to try and break away from your pursuers. And there's going to be plenty of strategic moments in the feature race and even in the sprint race and in qualifying about trying to get the slipstream to give you the perfect lap. But we've got to wait a week for that, and until then, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. If you have enjoyed, be sure to let us know, and feel free to come back tomorrow, because we will be broadcasting Lobby 2, the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing Lobby, and bring you all their experiences of their races at Zolder, which occurred tonight. We'll be taking a look back at all the action. But until next time, as always, ladies and gentlemen, it is good night and goodbye from us here at Next Gen Racing and myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.